exist on this planet. Demonize, 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 demonize. They're the ones who've been lying to us. Rear its ugly head, demonize. They're the ones who've been lying to us. Rear its ugly head, demonize, 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 demonize.
Are their bodies
demonized?
Yes, yes.
Demonized.
Are their bodies
Demonized.
Yes, yes.
Demonized.
Are their bodies
Demonized. Demonized.
Are their bodies
Demonized. Demonized.
There are UFO study programs,
Demonized.
illegal programs. Yes,
Demonized.
yes, yes, yes.
Demonized.
There are UFO study programs,
Demonized.
illegal programs. Yes,
Demonized.
yes, yes, yes.
Demonized.
We have no evidence.
Demonized.
Yes, 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 yes.
Demonized.
We have no evidence.
Demonized.
Yes, 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 yes.
Demonized.
We have no evidence.
Demonized.
Yes, 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 yes.
Demonized.
We have no evidence.
Demonized.
Yes, 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 yes.
Demonized. Craft that do not exist on this planet. Craft that do not exist on this planet. Craft that do not exist on this planet. Craft that do not exist.
Yes, 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 yes. Are their bodies
Demonized. Demonized.
Are their bodies
Demonized. 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 Demonized.
There are UFO study programs,
Demonized.
illegal programs. Yes,
Demonized.
yes, yes, yes.
Demonized.
There are UFO study programs,
Demonized.
illegal programs. Yes,
Demonized.
yes, yes, yes.
Demonized.
Yes, 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 yes.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight, we are going to be continuing our coverage of what I call the Stephen Greer UFO Clown Show. For those unaware, some time ago, Stephen Greer promised a historic UFO disclosure event, and it was hyped out the wazoo as a historic UFO disclosure event. And the only thing that was disclosed is, number one, Stephen Greer really likes money. And number two, all of Stephen Greer's so-called UFO whistleblowers were not whistleblowers. We've talked about this before. I am going to keep hammering this point home. Whistleblowers have evidence. You know, Snowden, he had a mountain of evidence, terabytes of data to support his claims that the United States government was illegally surveilling United States citizens. That's a whistleblower. Whistleblowers also have consequences for telling their truth and providing their evidence. Stephen Greer claimed that he had all of these whistleblowers, and we have detailed some of these ridiculous people, including a plumber who went to the North Pole and was sure there was HARP-like weather control devices and mind control devices at the North Pole. And what was his proof of that? He examined the circuitry. A plumber examined the circuitry at the North Pole and decided that that was a mind control device. Stephen Greer's clown show is absolutely, positively, without a doubt, the most ridiculous bunch of nonsense that I have ever heard. But this is nothing new in the so-called world of UFOs, because this is what Stephen Greer does. We've talked about this so many times. Overhype and then inevitably underdeliver. Then comes the big letdown. So after months and months of this event being hyped up by the bottom-feeding underlings of Dr. Stephen Greer, including Third Phase of Moon and Goofon, along comes the event, which costs $500 to attend in person, and we got no evidence. A lot of pretty pictures from Michael Schratt, which, by the way, I love Michael Schratt's pretty pictures, but as much respect and fondness that I have for Michael Schratt, that's not evidence. That's pretty pictures. Drawn illustrations are not evidence. All of so-called Stephen Greer's whistleblowers, none of them had any evidence. They were not whistleblowers. They were storytellers. Now, we've also talked about this infiltration of the UFO community. of intelligence assets, former CIA, former DIA, former FBI, any alphabet soup agency or three-letter agencies are literally infiltrating the UFO community and have been openly doing so since at least 2016. This is absolutely bonkers to me, because could you imagine if any other small subculture was suddenly invaded by people from the CIA, the DIA, the FBI, right? Wouldn't that be sort of like a newsworthy story if a bunch of people from the CIA suddenly invaded the Star Trek or comic book community? It would. But somehow here, we're not supposed to bat an eye when a bunch of government people, or claimed former government people. Lou Elizondo claimed that he quit the government. He forgot to tell us he was working for the government the whole time still. Great. So there has been this infiltration of CIA assets, especially John Ramirez. The people behind TTSA were mostly CIA people. Former Pentagon intelligence officer Lou Elizondo. Why are all these intelligence people suddenly infiltrated and directly in the spotlight and seeking and getting the spotlight in the UFO community? I find this incredibly troubling, and you should too, because what people need to understand is that we can demonstrably prove that these CIA assets have pushed completely and totally false narratives. Lou Elizondo did it. Anja Lee, she was another one. Former Defense Intelligence Agency. That's another of the three-letter agencies I may have forgotten. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. And what did Anja Lee do for the Defense Intelligence Agency before she jumped into the UFO community and demanded that everyone listen to her? She was an information warfare specialist. Now we've got Dave Grush also infiltrating the UFO community. What did he do? Oh, he also worked for a department of the United States government that dealt specifically in information warfare. This, my friends, is not a coincidence. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and appeal to some of you true believers who have been sending me nasty messages for years now, calling me a debunker. This is entirely and completely not the case. I'm not here to be a debunker. I am what I would term a skeptical believer. After all, I am an experiencer myself. People forget that. I'm just not willing to accept a false CIA disclosure being thrust upon us by some nefarious entity within the, I believe, within the intelligence community. Friends, it's not a coincidence that we've got John Ramirez from the CIA suddenly coming here and telling us that he was abducted by aliens. We've got Kit Green. We've got Ron Pandolfi. We've got Lou Elizondo. We've got Dave Grush. We've got Anja Lee. We've got John Ramirez, former FBI. All of these three-letter agency people. Ask yourself this: if we take all of those people out of the equation of the UFO community, what's left to talk about? Almost nothing. All of the narratives, Gary Nolan, CIA contractor, all of the narratives in the UFO community right now since 2016 have been driven and injected by intelligence assets. So I was not surprised when another CIA former, yes, we'll put former in quotes. I was not surprised when another former CIA asset who worked in CIA intelligence and is a former Navy SEAL suddenly injected himself into the UFO community, demanding the spotlight. He's going to bring us the truth. And yet, he has hitched his wagon to one of the biggest UFO profiteering hucksters there has ever been, and that would be one Dr. Stephen Greer. Now, before we begin, I just want to take a moment to try to be fair to Mr. Ryan. And maybe it was a bridge too far to portray him as a clown in our thumbnail. I don't really think so, because this is direct from Mr. Shawn Ryan from the Shawn Ryan Show. For you should be aware he's a former Navy SEAL and a former CIA contractor, Special Operations Outreach for Veterans Advocacy Service, CNBC contributor, and owner of Vigilance Elite. Here is what I love. If there is one thing you can come to expect on this channel, it is pure honesty. My main goal here at Vigilance Elite Productions is to give you a little knowledge with a cool twist of entertainment. If there's one thing you can expect from this channel, it is pure honesty. Shawn Ryan let Stephen Greer come on his show and lie for literally a few hours straight. And by the way, I'll be sending this video to Mr. Ryan. So let me educate you, Mr. Ryan, about all of the lies that Dr. Stephen Greer has told on your show. He claimed that he briefed every sitting U.S. president since Ronald Reagan on your show. You have an entire staff, Mr. Ryan. I have no staff. But I was still able to fact check that with presidential libraries and find out that no, Dr. Stephen Greer has not briefed any sitting or former U.S. president. We checked the Ronald Reagan library, the George H.W. Bush library, George W. Bush library. We checked the Clinton library, the Obama library. We reached out to media representatives of Donald Trump. Oh, he also claimed in a previous interview that he briefed Vice President Pence. We reached out to Pence's media representatives, and what we found out is that no, Dr. Stephen Greer has not briefed Donald Trump or Mike Pence. They neither requested nor got any sort of briefing from Dr. Stephen Greer. This is where the rubber meets the road, Mr. Shawn Ryan, when you claim that the one thing that people can expect from your channel is honesty. Well, tonight, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be what is called brutally honest. But Mr. Shawn Ryan, he's a manly man. After all, he was a Navy SEAL. And I would just like to say that my father was a Navy man. I knew many Navy men. And all the Navy men I have known to be men of honesty, integrity, and good ethics. So I'm kind of taken aback by the fact that it would appear that Mr. Shawn Ryan has sold out his background for perceived credibility within the UFO community so that he can make a lot of money helping people sell lies. Mr. Shawn Ryan, Dr. Stephen Greer verifiably 100% lied to your audience and to your face during those interviews multiple times. And if you truly are a man of honesty and integrity, you will allow me to be a guest on your show and provide you and your staff with more than substantial proof and evidence that Mr. Dr. Stephen Greer came on your show and verifiably lied to you and your audience many times in the course of those interviews. And let's take for a moment and recognize, what does it take for someone to sell out and be willing to help someone sell lies on YouTube? Well, the Dr. Stephen Greer interview, I want to be very accurate. So just pardon me for a moment while I check the numbers. Yes. And there's some ridiculous other shorts, but the Dr. Stephen Greer interview that Shawn Ryan did got 1.3 million monetized YouTube views, which equates to somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 in ad revenue or profit for Mr. Ryan and his company. I asked myself a very honest question, and that is this: would I sit there and just let Dr. Stephen Greer lie for 2 hours for $20,000 to $30,000? I would like to think that I was honest with myself and saying, no, I wouldn't do that. And I certainly expect that someone who is such a highly accomplished, manly man. Look, for those unaware, does anybody have any idea how difficult it is to get through SEAL training and become a Navy SEAL? It is a virtual impossibility. And in fact, you can look at the statistics. 99 out of 100 people who try fail. It is only the very best men that get through that training and become Navy SEALs. But, you know, I am just shocked and amazed that someone who is such an accomplished person would literally just sit there and allow Dr. Stephen Greer to lie to their audience so that they could make $20,000 to $30,000 for that one interview. But I have to be honest, $20,000 to $30,000 for a few hours work, maybe 3 hours of work, 1 hour to book the guest, communicate, get him in, set up his mics, get him ready, you know, pre-show, whatever. But 2 hours of interview, 3 hours work, you're getting $30,000. That's $10,000 an hour. And I just want to be very clear in saying this. When people wonder why there is so much scammery, fraudery, fakery, scamming and lying in the UFO community, and why so many people are willing to just play along with what I call the UFO circle jerk, Shawn Ryan just made $10,000 an hour doing exactly that, allowing a proven liar to lie to his audience for several hours. Now, let me be very clear. I can't prove everything that Stephen Greer said in that interview was a lie, but I can prove a lot of it was. And it's very troubling to me and disappointing that a man like Shawn Ryan, who has a company and an entire staff, and let's be clear, I have a company too, but I'm a one-man sole proprietorship. I have no actual direct employees, though occasionally I get help from other people, usually on a volunteer basis, or I throw them a couple of bucks for helping or whatever. But I'm a one-man army here. I don't have an entire staff. This man does. At least that's what I've been told. If I'm incorrect about that, I apologize. I'm told he has an entire staff behind him. You couldn't get one person on your staff to fact check this interview before you broadcast it to get your $30,000? And, you know, it just reminds me of the 40 pieces of silver in the story of Jesus. Like, what does it take for somebody to betray everything they are? What monetary amount is equal to your 40 pieces of silver? What would you sell out someone for, including your entire audience? Apparently, Shawn Ryan's price is between $20,000 and $30,000 for a few hours work. He's willing to just do that. I said I would be fair, but you know, I'm trying to be fair. There's no excuse if you have a staff for letting some guest come on your show and just lie for 2 hours straight and not fact check them, not request, you know, actual evidence of claims or documentation to prove the claims are accurate. You just let the guy talk for 2 hours. And one of the things Stephen Greer does is lie through his teeth. And another thing that's troubling is that no man of honesty and integrity would work. If you're trying to bring your audience the truth about UFOs, why would you work with a man who works with the biggest fraud UFO hoax channel on earth? Dr. Stephen Greer works with Third Phase of Moon. They produce some of his documentaries. And if you're unaware, Mr. Shawn Ryan, Third Phase of Moon has created more UFO hoaxes and disinformation than anyone. And I have a couple of documentaries, which I'm going to not sell you. Why did I think sell you? No, give you for free. They're free documentaries. And then you can find out who Dr. Stephen Greer is working with. the biggest UFO garbage peddlers on planet Earth in the form of third phase of moon. And I just want to be very clear in that when you work with people who are actively and intentionally putting out fake UFO videos, fake UFO information in the form of third phase of moon, and Gufon, who's also, everybody needs to be aware that this is all connected. Dr. Stephen Greer is connected directly to third phase of moon. Gufon is connected directly to third phase of moon as well. They all work together to sell people lies. And unfortunately, Shawn Ryan fell for it. Now, I want to do this video to try to educate Shawn Ryan. So here's what I will say. These are things that you were not aware of, Shawn Ryan. Dr. Stephen Greer works directly with third phase of moon, which is a popular YouTube channel dedicated to UFO content, and I will freely admit has gained considerable attention in the online UFO community. However, beneath the surface of their sensationalized videos and outlandish claims lies a trail, a decade-long trail of hoaxes, scams, and fabricated faked UFO sightings that they fabricated, had people fabricate, and more, all for money. And in educating Shawn Ryan, I really just aim to shed a light on the damaging effects of third phase of moon's deceptive practices. We want to highlight how their constant dissemination of fake UFO content has undermined the serious scientific study of unidentified flying objects, and to a lesser extent, or maybe the same extent, the idea or research into alien visitation on Earth. Third phase of moon, who produces some of Stephen Greer's documentary, has a notorious history of promoting hoaxes and sensationalized, completely and totally fake UFO videos. They have regularly posted content without proper verification or critical analysis, often leading to false claims and misleading narratives. And by third phase of moon, and also Stephen Greer perpetuating these hoaxes, after all, why would Stephen Greer work with these people unless he is endorsing their work? Third phase of moon as a YouTube channel erodes the credibility of genuine UFO research and casts doubt on the authenticity of even real and legitimate sightings. One of the most damaging aspects of third phase of moon is their failure to provide credible evidence or authentic UFO footage. The channel frequently publishes videos featuring obvious CGI creations, green screen fake UFOs, lens flares, rocket plumes, weather phenomenon, or other mundane objects misidentified as extraterrestrial spacecraft. In one recent example, they pumped up the best UFO footage of the year, and it turned out to be a high-altitude balloon, which we identified with flight tracking software in 35 seconds. This lack of authenticity undermines the efforts of serious researchers who strive to gather reliable, real data and evidence in the study of the UFO phenomenon. By actively promoting hoaxes and posting completely and totally fake UFO sightings, third phase of moon inadvertently discredits genuine witnesses and their experiences. And this damaging practice, which I guess is endorsed by Stephen Greer, since he likes their work enough to have them work for and with him, but this damaging practice of them posting all of this fake nonsense and disinformation, it undermines the credibility of authentic UFO sightings. It also discourages witnesses from coming forward due to fears of being associated with faked or exaggerated stories, like the kind that Gufon and third phase of moon are constantly peddling. This hampers the progress of real and serious scientific investigation and research into UFOs and aliens. What Third Phase of Moon does, and Stephen Greer by association, what they do is tarnish the reputation of UFO research. They are the reason that everyone says, oh, that stuff's all fake, because of people like Third Phase of Moon, Gufon, and Stephen Greer. They're tarnishing the reputation of real UFO research. The constant dissemination of fake UFO content by Third Phase of Moon tarnishes the entire reputation of UFO research. Genuine scientific inquiry into UFOs requires rigorous investigation, objective analysis, and a commitment to evidence-based research. However, the sensationalism and lack of integrity displayed by Third Phase of Moon creates a negative perception of the field, making it difficult for credible researchers to even be taken seriously. I can't stress enough how much damage Third Phase of Moon has done to this entire subject. And they work directly for Stephen Greer. Another concerning aspect of Third Phase of Moon's activity is their exploitation of the UFO community for financial gain. After all, their YouTube channel it relies heavily on advertising revenue, merchandise sales, and other income, including income from documentaries full of proven verifiable lies of Dr. Stephen Greer. We fact-checked one of their UFO documentaries with Stephen Greer, and it was laughable how many times Stephen Greer lied in a so-called documentary. Third Phase of Moon capitalize on the hopes and beliefs of UFO enthusiasts. And this commercialization of the UFO phenomenon further erodes the integrity of serious inquiry and perpetrates the perception that UFO research is merely a lucrative business venture and there's nothing real there. Third Phase of Moon, consistent dissemination of hoaxes, scams, and fake UFO sightings has had an incredibly detrimental impact to the serious scientific study of UFOs. Their lack of authenticity, their discrediting of genuine witnesses, and exploitation for financial gain is incredibly troubling. It's crucial for individuals interested in the study of the UFO phenomenon to exercise critical thinking, to seek reliable sources. And let's be clear, Third Phase of Moon is not a reliable source. Dr. Stephen Greer is not a reliable source of information. People need to distance themselves from channels like Third Phase of Moon. Anyone that is credible and on the level would never work for Third Phase of Moon. Yet Stephen Greer works for Third Phase of Moon, or they work for him. They have a business partnership. No one credible would ever have a business partnership with Third Phase of Moon. And we know that because bottom-feeding slime balls like Gufon work for Third Phase of Moon. Third Phase of Moon prioritizes sensationalism over genuine investigation. And only through a commitment to real research and credible evidence can the field of UFO research regain its integrity and move forward with serious research into the phenomenon. Now, Shawn Ryan may be unaware that Stephen Greer has a business partnership with the biggest scammers in the world of UFOs. There, I said it. Shawn Ryan, before you sat him in a chair and let him lie for hours and hours on end, did you know he was business partners with people that have faked, hoaxed, and lied about more UFO sightings than anyone on Earth? Did you know that the people who produce some of his so-called documentaries have faked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of UFO videos in the past 10 years, made a ton of money making completely and totally fake UFO sightings? Did you know that before you agreed to interview Stephen Greer? And let's talk about Dr. Stephen Greer and his lack of credibility, because I don't think that this Shawn Ryan understands. So when it comes to Dr. Stephen Greer, what you have to do is peel back the layers of deception. And once you peel back the layers of deception of Dr. Stephen Greer, what happens is that you unveil the mirage of deception and financial exploitation that is Dr. Stephen Greer. In the world of UFO enthusiasts and extraterrestrial believers, few names stand as tall as Dr. Stephen Greer. However, it's all a facade. And behind the facade of a self-proclaimed authority on alien encounters and government conspiracies lies a trail of dubious, unproven claims, scams, swindles, outrageous, unproven assertions, and an incessant thirst for financial gain. In educating Shawn Ryan, my aim is to expose the flaws and questionable practices of Dr. Stephen Greer, shedding light on the dangers of blind faith and exploitation of believers, and shedding light on the dangers of not fact-checking a man like Dr. Stephen Greer. Dr. Stephen Greer has a long history, a 30-plus year history of unsubstantiated claims. Throughout his career, Dr. Greer has made numerous sensational claims about UFO sightings, encounters with extraterrestrial beings, communicating with extraterrestrial beings, and the existence of advanced technologies. Despite his many, many bold assertions, he has consistently failed for 30 years now to provide any concrete evidence to support his extraordinary claims. He's been making these claims for 30 years, Shawn Ryan. He has never proven any of them. From his alleged meetings with high-ranking government officials up to and including every sitting president since Ronald Reagan, to his boasts of assessing top-secret information, Greer's narratives are often nothing more than unsubstantiated anecdotes, lacking a single shred of any verifiable proof. One of the most concerning aspects of Greer's modus operandi is his track record of orchestrating what could only be described as scams or swindles. His so-called disclosure project promised to unveil top-secret information about UFOs and alien encounters, but ended up being a platform for unsubstantiated testimonials from alleged witnesses. His Orion project, which he claimed would create a free energy device, collected more than $500,000 and delivered nothing. But back to the disclosure project. That project, like many others associated with Greer, was primarily a vehicle to generate revenue through book sales, conferences, documentaries, and costly training programs. And let's not forget that app he sells for $10, where he claims that you too can summon UFOs and alien spaceships and even communicate with extraterrestrials. Shawn Ryan, did you ask him to bring you some alien spaceships to look at? Since he sells an app to do that, he should be able to do that for you and your audience, right? These activities of Dr. Stephen Greer's often prey on the hopes and dreams of vulnerable individuals who are seeking validation and answers about their own personal experiences. Greer has consistently demonstrated a penchant for making extravagant and unfounded claims that lack any scientific rigor or proof. One of his most controversial assertions is the existence of free energy, technology suppressed by the government and big corporations. Despite collecting $500,000 to create a free energy device, by the way, Shawn Ryan, no one knows what happened to that $500,000. He won't answer any questions about it. And despite Greer's claims of being a volunteer, he has no charity. We did a background check. He has a whole bunch of for-profit companies, but he's not in a board member or a person running a charity. This isn't a charity. It's a for-profit venture with Stephen Greer. And despite promising groundbreaking revelations of free energy, including and up to giving giving the world a free and open source free energy device after he collected $500,000. By the way, he delivered nothing. Then he collected over another $500,000 to create a film promising extraordinary revelations about free energy. Yet all the information in his documentary is freely available on the internet, and a lot of unproven claims again. And despite, like I said, despite promising groundbreaking revelations when he collected the last $500,000, we're up to $1 million Greer has collected for free energy. Greer has been completely and totally unable to provide any credible evidence, any independent verification of these so-called technologies. Such grandiose claims only serve to mislead and exploit the gullible and desperate individual who place their faith in him. And let's get to that, because perhaps one of the most troubling aspects of Dr. Stephen Greer's endeavors is his relentless pursuit of financial gain. Greer is constantly raising funds for one thing or another. He has collected millions and millions and millions of dollars, promising all kinds of things, and never, as I said previously, never, Mr. Ryan, in 30 years has he provided proof of his outrageous claims. Dr. Stephen Greer's, one of the most troubling aspects then, of course, is Dr. Stephen Greer's relentless pursuit of money. He's repeatedly asked for financial contributions from his followers, often in the form of donations, yet he's not running a charity, or for fees, very high, some would say outrageous fees, for attending his workshops and events. This constant solicitation of money raises real and important questions about his true intentions and commitment to the so-called cause of disclosure, or even to the pursuit of knowledge about these strange and esoteric topics. It appears to me, and anybody watching him, especially over the long term, I've been watching him since the 90s, that his primary motivation lies in capitalizing on the fears, aspirations, and the hope of his followers, rather than in genuinely advancing scientific understanding of UFOs and aliens, or, God forbid, in promoting critical thinking. Dr. Stephen Greer's reputation as a figurehead in the world of UFO enthusiasts is built on a foundation of extremely ethically questionable practices. A huge 30-year-long list of unproven claims, and most worrying to me, the financial exploitation aspect of what Dr. Stephen Greer does, as well as his history of unsubstantiated narratives, some things that could only be called scams and swindles. After all, he took money from people and claimed that a cactus was an alien. A cactus off in the distance. No, that's an extraterrestrial. Turn those lights off. He took a great deal of money from people and claimed that flares from a military exercise happening right at the exact time and right at the exact place where he was holding his event were extraterrestrial spaceships. And these, what can only be called scams and swindles, they demonstrate a pattern of misleading people and preying on vulnerable individuals who, I have a great deal of empathy for, being an experiencer myself, because these people who go to Greer are individuals who seek answers and validation. It's essential to approach his claims with skepticism and critically evaluate the lack of evidence that he provides. Greer's tactics perpetrate a culture of blind faith and hinder the pursuit of legitimate research in the field of extraterrestrial phenomenon. And we have to be sure that we recognize Dr. Stephen Greer's biggest money grab. And I challenge Dr. Stephen Greer, prove your CE5 app works. Because if we examine Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative, and associated phone app, pardon me, which, by the way, his app purports to enable users to summon alien spacecraft and communicate with extraterrestrial beings, all for $10. But through an in-depth analysis of Greer's unproven claims, questionable protocols, and lack of scientific evidence, we're going to expose the shortcomings and the inherent flaws in his assertions. Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 initiative and the accompanying phone app have garnered a lot of attention within the UFO community, and there's a lot of people who believe it works. However, a closer examination of the claims made by Greer regarding summoning alien spacecraft and even communicating with extraterrestrial entities reveals a big lack of scientific rigor and evidentiary support. In fact, there's no evidence to prove that this works, unless you count people all over the world showing you pictures of lights in the sky. That's all I've been given, and if you have proof, send it to me. Greer's assertions regarding the protocols involved in his CE5 initiative lack empirical evidence and scientific verification. He claims that through meditation, consciousness expansion, and specific techniques, individuals can contact and interact with alien species. However, Greer fails to provide any verifiable proof of these claims, which to me, it seems like consumer fraud to me. If you're going to say, buy my app for $10 and you'll be able to summon UFOs and you'll be able to communicate with extraterrestrial entities from other star systems, shouldn't you be able to prove that people are getting their $10 worth and that your claims are actually true before taking people's money? And by the way, we're going to examine this issue with Google and Apple. We're going to get on the record statements from Google and Apple asking why they're letting him sell a scam app on their platforms. There is no verifiable proof of these claims. There's personal anecdotes and uncorroborated testimonials, I guess, but there's not actual proof that his CE5 app works. Now, on to the actual protocols. The protocols advocated by Greer as part of the CE5 initiative raise serious doubts about their effectiveness and legitimacy. And by the way, they were stolen from in my opinion, they were stolen from the transcendental meditation movement. For example, he suggests using laser pointers to signal to alien spacecraft, despite the lack of any scientific basis for such claims. And additionally, Greer's emphasis on group meditations as a means of somehow summoning extraterrestrial beings relies heavily on subjective experiences, and it lacks objective evidence to support its efficacy. Greer's CE5 initiative and associated app lack the scientific rigor necessary to substantiate claims of alien communication. There's an absence of controlled experiments. There's an absence of systematic data collection. There's an absence of peer-reviewed studies, and this undermines the credibility of his methods and his claims. The reliance on anecdotal evidence and subjective interpretation hinders the progress of any real proof of these claims. While Greer presents his CE5 initiative as a means of peaceful contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, again, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. And also, these misguided beliefs, in my opinion, may have unintended consequences. Individuals who invest time, money, and hope in these practices may be susceptible to a great deal of disappointment, delusion, and exploitation in the form of Dr. Stephen Greer, who always needs more money. The absence of any responsible oversight and evidence-based guidance within the CE5 community raises ethical concerns regarding the well-being and even the mental health of some of its participants. And let's for a moment recognize that Dr. Stephen Greer is essentially telling people to welcome entities in. Go talk to a Catholic priest. Go talk to a rabbi about whether that's a safe practice from a spiritual perspective. But that's a story for another show. Greer's marketing of the CE5 app as a tool for alien communications contributes to the commercialization of the UFO phenomenon. And quite honestly, it fills Stephen Greer's pockets with money. It capitalizes on the hopes and beliefs of individuals seeking some genuine form of contact with other races, including aliens. And his focus on profit undermines the pursuit of any scientific proof. It fosters a culture of uncritical acceptance of claims rather than critical thinking and rigorous investigation. Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 initiative and accompanying phone app, I think, are largely problematic. They lack scientific rigor and evidentiary support. They're based largely, he's selling this thing based on unproven claims. Hey, let's trust a guy who's been caught lying 100 or 300 times in the past 30 years. Let's trust that guy that for $10, we really can communicate with aliens. There's an absence of scientific validation, and that undermines all of Greer's claims. You won't find a scientist confirming that Dr. Stephen Greer's app works. In fact, most scientists, if you show them this and talk to them about it, even try to get them to try it, will laugh at you. There are potential ethical implications, and commercialization associated with these practices further diminish the legitimacy of real and valid UFO and alien researchers. I wonder if Mr. Shawn Ryan knew about all of this before deciding to hitch his wagon to Greer's UFO clown show. Because let's be clear, that's what it is. Greer runs a UFO clown show, complete with, merchandise you can buy that does nothing, but has, oh, sure, you're going to communicate with aliens. So before we get into the rest of tonight's presentation, let me take a moment to recognize the live chat. I apologize. Sometimes we have a lot of information and data to share, and I forget to do that. So my apologies. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. If you're just joining us, you are watching Truthseekers. Thank you for being here with us live. And we are breaking down Dr. Stephen Greer's UFO clown show, because it would appear that Dr. Stephen Greer now has a CIA asset who is going to help him sell his garbage. And we are going to try tonight to educate that person who I believe may just have gotten things wrong. And, there have been people, stories, and other things in my life that I know now, hindsight is always 20/20. I guess my point is there have been people that I misjudged. There have been people that I believed when I should not have believed them. There have been stories and situations which I believed were true, and I later learned were not what they appeared to be. And that may be the case here. So I'm going to try to be fair to Mr. Shawn Ryan. But let's get into Dr. Stephen Greer's UFO clown show, and that is his so-called UFO whistleblowers. Now, I'm going to share my screen here because I fixed a graphic for him. And I think this is important. And we want to be sure to recognize that, maybe Shawn Ryan really thinks that he's doing the right thing here. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he's going to help his audience get to the truth. But I'm going to share this graphic here. And this is tonight's thumbnail. Former Navy SEAL and CIA contractor Shawn Ryan joins Stephen Greer's UFO clown show. And the graphic said, coming soon, UFO whistleblowers. But I want to correct you, Mr. Shawn Ryan. You do not have UFO whistleblowers. You have UFO storytellers. Because go look up whistleblower, go look for historical examples. Whistleblowers come with evidence, usually a mountain of it, like the Panama Papers or, Deep Throat in that old case, or Edward Snowden or Julian Assange. They all had Chelsea Manning. They all had huge amounts of evidence that proved that what they were blowing the whistle on was true, accurate, and correct. But there's a problem with Dr. Stephen Greer's whistleblowers, and that is not a one of them has actual evidence of their claims. Not one. And listen, we're going to go, let's just take Eric Hecker. That's the person who decided he was going to wear a shirt with Antarctica patches on it because he went to the North Pole. Or was it North Pole patches? I don't remember. He wore a ridiculous shirt and and it had a bunch of patches for the North Pole, like he's some kind of military whistleblower. No, he's not. He's a plumber. And yeah, great. He might have went to the North Pole as a plumber. You know, they need plumbers at the bases that they have there. He has absolutely no verifiable evidence of any of his claims, Mr. Ryan. And in fact, Eric Hecker, you can prove that his claims are false. He claimed to be a part of Project Stargate. And Russell Targ and other people who ran Project Stargate verified that Eric Hecker was not a part of Project Stargate. Never. Though he claims to. Now you're going to interview him. Are you going to call him on lying about being a part of a famous remote viewing program that he had absolutely no part in? He was a child at the time. And just for your own knowledge and education, Mr. Ryan, there were no children ever a part of Project Stargate. And Eric Hecker is so ridiculous. We showed it on a previous show. He called me all kinds of names and started ad hominem attacks because I said that his evidence was fake. He claims all the evidence of his claims is on his website. Go look at his website, Mr. Ryan. All you're going to find is documents that he downloaded from abovetopsecret.com or theblackvault.com. He has none of those documents actually mention him or prove any of his claims. So he tells people all the evidence of my claims is on my website. No, it's not. And in fact, one of the documents that this person actually shared and claimed were top secret government documents were labeled something absolutely ridiculous, right? Something absolutely ridiculous, like, you know, really top secret. Like that's how his top secret documents were labeled. They were fake top secret documents. Top secret documents aren't labeled like that. We checked with an expert. His so-called top secret documents were fake. And, you know, it's really unfortunate that this man is able to run around and claim that he was involved in very famous, remote viewing programs for the CIA. By the way, you were a CIA contractor, Mr. Ryan. Couldn't you check with some of your CIA contacts and check if this Eric Hecker was ever a part of any CIA program? Because he wasn't. I'm telling you, he wasn't. There's verifiable evidence and proof that he was never a part of those programs. And I'm looking right now for that one document because it is just so incredibly laughable. I apologize. We did show it on a previous show. I think that Mr. Shawn Ryan really does need someone to guide him through what I call the grifter land, right? I think so. Oh, and we did find it. Okay, so great. I'm going to share this with my audience. This is one of your whistleblowers, Shawn Ryan. He's sharing documents on his website, which are labeled right at the top, classified as hell. Shawn Ryan, you were a Navy SEAL. You were a CIA contractor. Have you ever seen a top secret document from the United States government that was labeled classified as hell? And I apologize. I don't know why. I don't know why I can't show that bigger. Maybe I can. Hold on. Classified. This is the quality, Mr. Ryan, of your so-called UFO whistleblowers. And you're going to do a show and let this clown who says here is the top secret proof of my claims. How is that helping your audience get to the truth about UFOs. And by the way, Eric Heckert's so-called evidence has nothing to do with UFOs. Zero. Nothing. Nothing to do with UFOs, nothing to do with aliens, as far as I'm aware. And here we go. Now we can see it much more clearly. The documents that one of Stephen Greer's clown show UFO whistleblowers, who's not a whistleblower because he has no real evidence, he's sharing documents which are titled at the top, classified as hell. That's right, classified. If this document ain't just classified. This ain't just top secret classified. This document classified as hell. Come on, Shawn Ryan. Is this the clown show that you want to be a part of? If you've already interviewed that guy but not broadcast it, you better dump that. You better dump that, Shawn Ryan. Or are you just here for the clicks and views and the money you could make from people selling lies? It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, let's get into some of the other clown show participants because I think this is important. Okay, so we've talked about the plumber whistleblower who was never a part of Project Stargate, though he said he was, and is showing people fake top secret documents that he claims is proof of his claims, right? Great. Now, one of the other of Greer's whistleblowers went to some underground base, and then he saw a big floating boulder. That's it. That's the gist of his story. He went into a secret underground base, and while there, he saw a big floating boulder. It was floating a few feet off the ground. At least that's what he perceived or what he thought he saw. I'm unconvinced. And I don't understand. That's a whistleblower, and that's his story. And again, that guy has no evidence and no proof of his stories whatsoever. Just his story that his father was a government contractor, and while there, he saw a floating boulder, of all things. And I could offer some alternate explanations because I have actually been in a lot of caves. When I was younger, I don't know why, but it was interesting to me for some reason. And I would go and visit caves. I've been to Crystal Caverns and Indian Echo Caverns and a lot of different caves, mostly in Pennsylvania. And you will see some strange things inside caves. Boulders that look like maybe they're floating, but they're just attached to the cave wall. How do we know that what that man saw wasn't just a boulder or a big rock attached to the cave wall somehow that he did not perceive or see? Well, then he claims when he came back, the boulder was disappeared. Okay, but that's the gist of the guy's story. And that's, I believe that's the second guy. So the first guy closest to me is the plumber who saw weather control devices and mind control devices at the North Pole. What's his proof of that? Stuff he downloaded from the Black Vault about weather modification programs. That's it. That's his total proof. And he likes to argue like, well, I've actually been there and you haven't. You're a plumber. You're not qualified to look at something and say, that's a weather modification device. That's a mind control device. I have a background in computer science, and I have said this previously. If I laid my eyes on circuit boards from a mind control device, I would not be able to say, yeah, that's a mind control device. And remember, I've built computers and robots and radios and transmitters and circuit boards my entire life. And I'm telling you, I cannot identify a mind control device by looking at a circuit board of one. I wouldn't know it from, anything else. When viewing a circuit board from a weather modification or weather control device that can generate tsunamis and hurricanes and weather patterns and control the weather, if I was looking at circuit boards of a machine that could actually do that, I wouldn't know it. And let's be clear, I have a background in electronics, in computer science. I built robots, transmitters, circuit boards. I have repaired ham radios and computers my entire life. I did what's called board level circuit repair. In other words, now we just take the motherboard out and throw it in the trash. There used to be a time when you had to trace everything on the board and go, oh, it's a bad resistor. Then you pop out that resistor, you solder in a new one, and the board is fixed. This man has no experience in electronics. He's a goddamn plumber. And what is his evidence and proof that he saw mind control devices and weather control devices while working as a goddamn plumber in the North Pole? He looked at the circuit board and he identified them as weather control devices and mind control devices. This is why this is a goddamn clown show. That's the person closest to me, a man named Eric Hecker. The next person is the guy who saw the floating rock. Okay. Our next person is another person, which we will get to know a little better. He has what I will admit is an interesting story. However, other military people, after his story dropped at that so-called historic UFO event, other people called bullshit on this guy. And it's important to note that these are other military people. There's a lot of inconsistencies in his story. And I tried to get her tonight, but I thought Emily Louise did an incredible breakdown of this guy. She was unable to come here as a guest tonight, but hey, Emily Louise from Weird Reads by Emily Louise YouTube channel. She just made a new documentary on cattle mutilations, and I'm going to try to get her to come here and talk about it next week. But in the meantime, I thought this was great. Emily says, last night I subjected myself to an interview with a supposed UFO, quote, whistleblower, unquote, named Michael Herrera, who claims to have stumbled across a UFO human trafficking operation in Indonesia in 2009. His story is interesting enough that it warrants a closer look. First of all, his interview was on the Shawn Ryan show. Shawn is a former Navy SEAL and CIA contractor currently cashing in on the UFO craze with his series of UFO whistleblowers, which is what we're talking about right now. His most recent guest before Herrera was Stephen Greer. It got 1.3 million views. Yes, and he made $20,000 to $30,000. Directly before Greer, he interviewed Jim Caviezel, star of the movie Sound of Freedom. I'm not going to go into detail. There's a 3-part podcast about that movie. So there's some Q pushing kind of stuff going on over there, is what it is. Back to Herrera. He went public with the story in June with an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail's Josh Boswell. In the piece, Herrera says he testified under oath to AARO and a Senate committee about what he saw. Exclusive. Marine vet breaks his 14-year silence to make astonishing claim that his 6-man unit saw a hovering octagonal UFO being loaded with weapons by unmarked U.S. forces who threatened them at gunpoint while serving in Indonesia. And here's something extremely important to point out. This person never saw guns. He saw cases and assumed they were guns. Later, this man's claims also included human trafficking involving UFOs. So his story has changed and evolved and gotten more sensational in the very short time that he has been out there on the scene, which is only literally weeks. In literally weeks, this guy's story went from, I saw an octagonal UFO, they were running guns with it. By the way, there's no evidence of guns. He didn't see any guns being loaded. He saw cases being loaded into something he thought was a UFO. Great, but he didn't see guns with his own eyes. So how is this a story about gun running? Could it be because that makes a much more salacious and sensational story that you can make more money selling than just Hey, while I was in the military, I saw an octagonal UFO and someone was loading some boxes in that bitch. Really? Really? That's your story? Yeah. I saw an octagonal UFO and somebody was loading some boxes in that bitch. Really? That's it? Did you see what was in the boxes? No, but they were definitely loading boxes in that bitch. I seen them. They were loading them boxes in that octagonal UFO. Okay. Like, come on, dude. After the addition of now it's a story about UFOs and gun running, then it became a story about UFOs, gun running, and human trafficking. And what was his proof or evidence of human trafficking? He saw oxygen tanks. And everybody knows if a truck has an oxygen tank on it, that's for human trafficking. It couldn't be for welding or scuba diving or anything. There is no other explanation in the world why a truck would have an oxygen tank on it, except it must be for drug running and human trafficking. Oh, let's not forget that. Then the story gets even broader and even more sensational. Original story was octagonal UFO. They were loading weapons onto it. Didn't see weapons with his own eyes. Then it becomes octagonal UFO, human trafficking, gun running, and drugs. Holy jeez, is this a CIA black op where they're loading cocaine into a UFO and then flying the UFO over to Harlem or Chicago or, South Central Los Angeles to give all the ghetto people the crack and keep them down? That's what I think. This is all a huge conspiracy. This guy saw an octagonal UFO, and it had to be that all had to do with gun running and drug trafficking and human trafficking. The story has gotten stranger and stranger, and this guy's only been here a few weeks. Stories don't change that quickly. An octagonal craft the size of a football field was being loaded with large weapons cases. And by the way, even if that man was familiar with weapons cases, just because he saw cases being loaded doesn't mean there was weapons or drugs in those cases. By what appeared to be a rogue faction of the American military. And by the way, those people could have been anybody. They didn't have to be American. Well, they could be English speaking, but that doesn't mean they were American. They didn't have any insignia or anything. They could have been Australian black ops, English black ops. They could have been contractors from the various military contractors around the world. He says the bottom part of the UFO rose up to meet the hovering part. Then it shot off. Herrera appeared at Dr. Stephen Greer's historic disclosure event in Washington, D.C. in June. He urged politicians to get the situation under control because people were being hurt and killed by this. He didn't mention human trafficking once. Why? So even weeks ago, he never mentioned the human trafficking. Now, hey, we got to juice up this story because an octagonal UFO, that's a cool story. Gun running with an octagonal UFO, that's a cool story. That makes it cooler. You know what? Let's add in some drugs and let's add in human trafficking, right? Well, in last night's interview, Herrera says that a gentleman he won't give any details of approached him at the Greer event and told him that the containers he saw were not for drugs or weapons. They were for humans and part of a human trafficking operation. Oh, this story's getting bigger. The interview with Shawn Ryan dropped 20 hours ago and currently has 679,000 views. And by the way, well, we'll check it. We'll check it and we'll give you a more accurate. Now it's up to 825,000 views. So Shawn Ryan has made another $20,000 to $30,000 pushing this garbage. Great. Way to go. And despite the only evidence being some unknown person, an anonymous person at a Stephen Greer publicity event telling him that, Up until then, he said they were weapons. So the story's changing. First, they were weapons. I'm sure I heard they were drugs, and they had to be drugs because there was oxygen tanks. And he said at the Greer event, those oxygen tanks are used to shrink wrap the drugs. There could be no other use for those oxygen tanks other than to shrink wrap drugs. Okay. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who work in trades, and a lot of them have oxygen tanks, usually for welding or other uses, right? Could be helium tank for all he knew. He didn't know what was in the tank. How did he know it was oxygen? There's so many holes in this story. And this is what Shawn Ryan says. We're giving whistleblowers a platform and a voice this week on the Shawn Ryan Show. Former Marine Michael Herrera tells all in part 1 of his 3-part series. They're going to do 3 parts with this clown? Great. Herrera and his team were tasked with responding to a major earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia, providing overwatch and logistical support. Little did he know he would come face to face with a UFO. And here is Stephen Greer on a few days before Herrera talking about a strike force that would be going after black sites. Note the language: treasonous, horrific crimes, etc. Yeah, and then of course then somebody else came out with a similar video right after him and got 500,000 views. Do you see how this disinformation spreads? This disinformation originates with a CIA contractor in the form of Shawn Ryan. And by the way, how does Shawn Ryan go from nothing and nobody to a guy with sets, with all this production, with the best cameras, the best production? Instantly. Could it be because this might be some sort of a CIA operation to promote UFO disinformation? Could be. Anything is possible.
My understanding is that if within 6 to 12 months, the results of this new bill is not forthcoming. In other words, if these corporations and individuals don't capitulate and provide what they have to the legal U.S. government, then force will be necessary.
Which brings us to the strike team.
Yeah.
Do you want to
And
talk
come
about
on.
the strike?
This guy was a Navy SEAL. He knows that no strike team is just going to invade private corporations without warrants and everything else. This is nonsense.
Strike team?
I'll just say carefully that people who are utterly fed up in the legal government, who have the means to do something beyond a hearing, that are, special operators and what have.
Oh, yeah.
There
Can't name them.
Absolutely, a clock has been set.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about.
And the reason for that is they now realize that the organizations doing this are treasonous, and they are subverting the interests and the national security of the United States.
Yeah, and notice the language. Emily Louise is exactly right about the language here. He's been using the same language for years. There's all these illegal programs. There's no congressional oversight. It's a secret government. He's been using these talking points for years. Now, though, he's at it that there's a special forces or FBI or joint strike force that's going to literally just invade private companies and grab the alien and UFO materials.
And the rogue elements, the worst, are doing all kinds of crimes undercover.
Yeah, and Stephen Greer knows about all these people that are doing all these illegal things. Why doesn't he name them? Why doesn't he name them? Could it be because this is all a goddamn fantasy story concocted in the imagination of a guy who's been lying for a living for 30 plus years? Could maybe that be why he can't name anybody? He can't name the people sending the strike force. He can't name the people in the strike force, and he can't name the people doing the illegal things that the strike force is going to go invade somehow. Welcome to the UFO clown show of Dr. Stephen Greer. And what's he going to say when none of this crap happens? He's going to do the same thing he always does, the Cosmic Con shuffle off and make up new fake stories and hope everybody forgets that your old fake stories never came to fruition and your old fake stories never produced any tangible or verifiable proof. He's an expert at the Cosmic Con Shuffle. He's been doing this for 30 years.
Of Pentagon or undercover of agency, undercover of the government. Excuse me. This is a complete abuse of power. So
is this strike team from the U.S. government?
I don't want to comment beyond that. It would be it'd be an authorized operation against these illegally run rogue elements.
Oh, an authorized, yeah, it's going to be an authorized, come on. All right, and not surprisingly, right after that, suddenly people start getting anonymous sources telling them about a strike force that would be going after black sites that are holding alien technology and secrets. It practically echoes what Greer said, says Emily Louise. But who could be running this strike force? Well, I'm sure it's not connected at all, but Michael Herrera just so happens to run a private security firm called Valkyrie Eye Incorporated in Denver that offers prompt response from anything transportation to personal protection. Isn't that interesting? Herrera's, this is great. Emily's great. Some of the more among you are going to love this. Herrera's former Instagram bio read, Freemason, Rosicrucian, Lucius Trust. Yeah, very, very interesting, right? And he runs a private security firm. Great. Anyway, says Emily, I find it interesting that a YouTube channel run by a former CIA contractor that boosted former CIA Tim Ballard's Sound of Freedom is now boosting baseless UFO human trafficking stories that sound an awful lot like Q. Probably nothing to it, though. So, you know, come on. This is so absolutely ridiculous. And there we have it. Another whistleblower with no evidence. And you know, that's all I'm saying. This guy's going to do multi-part interviews. The guy already told the whole story on Greer's thing, and they made a lot of money from that. Now, the guy's going to tell the story on a CIA Assets YouTube channel. Great. And we're going to do a 3-part series. You're going to do 6 hours. He's already told the story. What else are you going to talk to him about for another 4 hours? 2 more episodes, 2 more parts to this series? Or is the story going to continually evolve and change? And isn't that, or wouldn't that be considered a red flag? The story keeps changing with that guy. So, you know, I am just completely and totally disgusted with the level of garbage peddling that is going on here. And, you know, listen, people telling stories with no evidence, to me, has no value. I mean, it's great if you just want to be entertained by like interesting stories that may be true about aliens on planet Earth. I grew beyond that when I was 8 years old. Okay. I want to see some evidence, and I don't want to hear somebody tell stories for 8 hours with no evidence. To me, that would be a waste of 8 hours. Now I could play portions of this. You know what? We will. We'll play a portion of this. I've got a little more time to share with you. We'll try to play portions of this. Hold on, let's check in. Shawn Ryan, a CIA asset who is hosting known people who lie constantly and sell fake stories constantly, is fully monetized. Right? And we talked about this issue before, but I'm going to keep hammering this issue home. YouTube will allow somebody to go on a CIA Assets YouTube channel and lie through their teeth about briefing presidents, and that's advertiser friendly. And that can be fully monetized. And here we go again, friends. I'm going to share this with you again. I haven't cursed. I haven't dropped one F-bomb this entire broadcast. But still, before the show is even finished, we are flagged as limited or no ads. This video may earn limited or no ad revenue due to content identified as not suitable for most advertisers. So what is YouTube saying? That if you make a show telling people the truth about people lying on YouTube, that's not advertiser friendly. But if you make a show with people lying on YouTube, you can have all the ads you want. And here we have yesterday's show, which was also flagged. We've put in for a review. All the views are more or less finished from that show, and it's still not finished with the review. And we'll request a review. I've double checked. Yeah, I think telling people the truth is advertiser friendly. And going on a public YouTube channel and lying through your teeth about briefing every president since Ronald Reagan shouldn't be advertiser friendly. And we are documenting. I'm keeping a spreadsheet of all of this. And eventually, friends, I am going to request a comment from YouTube about this very issue. It's absolutely ridiculous to me that scammers, liars, hoaxers, and fraudsters can be fully monetized. But if you're skeptical or critical of the claims being made, or even if you provide a mountain of evidence that the claims being made are false, you get demonetized. Why is that? And this is the issues that we're dealing with, which is why it's so important to support our show if you can. I would really appreciate that. We've been dealing with this issue for years now. I just started spreadsheeting it all because at some point I have to ask YouTube executives, and I'm going to show you the receipts. I will have all the evidence and proof that the show that we did revealed lies, scams, hoaxes, and disinformation, false information being spread on YouTube. I get demonetized. But yet the people who are doing that are fully monetized. People like David Wilcock and Corey Good and this guy and Stephen Greer, fully monetized. You can lie all you want. You can make false claims and tell completely provably fake stories all you want. But if you show evidence of people doing that, demonetized. We'll review it, but it'll take us 5 days to get the review done. And by then, you won't make anything in ad revenue on that work that you did, that research that you did, that broadcast that you did. That life energy that you gave to showing people the truth is worthless here on this platform, apparently. And, I'm sorry. I'm so sick of this. I'm sick of this. Well, I was not aware of this. Mysterion says shouting, aggravated content, directed malice, all demonetizers. No, they always monetize it after the review. So it can't be because of that. And I don't think that I shouted or did any of that. But okay. I mean, how much calmer could I be? Right? So we are going to check in and we're going to sample some of this. We'll put our fair use banner up. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public about CIA asset Shawn Ryan, former Navy SEAL, who is platforming people telling, let's just say, questionable, unprovable stories that are very fantastic, but have zero evidence. Oh, and by the way, there is more substantial and supportive evidence that this guy is full of it. He claims that he went on a humanitarian mission in Indonesia, but they didn't give him a radio. Go ask a military guy. If they're going to deploy you off of a Navy ship into what may be a hostile situation, they're not going to give you communication devices or radios? That does not make any sense whatsoever. And I dispute that. And by the way, I'm aware of many people who were FOIA-ing the hell out of this guy's claims. And I'll tell you what, within a few short months, we're going to find out a lot more about this guy's story. And I think that this guy's entire story is going to fall apart. That's my personal belief and speculation based on, I have not been able to fully investigate his claims. I'm aware of other people doing all these Freedom of Information Act requests, and I decided to take a step back. We fully investigated one of Greer's fake whistleblowers, Eric Hecker's claims, and those all turned out to be garbage. So in an effort not to recreate the wheel, I'm going to wait on those other researchers to get the FOIAs, and then we'll find out more. This is fair use. We are going to be critiquing the video that we are sharing. This is Michael Herrera, U.S. Marine, encounters UFO black op, human trafficking operation. Even the title can't be proven. Can this guy prove, or can Shawn Ryan prove that that was a human trafficking operation? He saw no one being human trafficked, but some guy at Stephen Greer's event told him those weren't weapons in those cases. Those were people. Those weren't weapons. Oh, God. This just gets better and better. You know those cases that you saw? Those weren't weapons. There were people in those cases. It was human trafficking. Okay, I'll just say it was human trafficking from now on. Come on. And all these people are making money off of this kind of headline, this kind of garbage clickbait title. It's ridiculous. But hey, it's great that Shawn Ryan can make $20,000 to $30,000 from one broadcast, helping people lie or tell completely unprovable stories, but we can't make $50 in ad revenue telling people the truth. I try not to get discouraged with the injustice of this whole corrupt system that I find myself in. And I truly believe in that saying of Gandhi's, be the change you want to see in the world. Because, if I was just here for the money, I really think, and by the way, I have a lot of critics. Oh, you're making money too. Here's a perfect example. I really think if I was here for the money, I would do that. If you can't beat them, join them, right? But I'm not willing to do that. I'm not here for the money, but it bothers me because it is an injustice, and it's completely unfair that this guy can make $20,000 to $30,000 with liars telling lies, including Stephen Greer lying through his teeth about briefing presidents. But we here, we can't make $20 or $30 or $50 a show in ad revenue telling people the truth. And we have evidence, right? Amazing. So this is fair use. This is transformative work. We'll be discussing and critiquing the video that we are sharing. We're not going to go very long with this because, quite honestly, I can't stand to listen to somebody for too long. Let's get into it, though, friends.
With medical equipment and food supplies, but it was just your unit.
Yes.
Which there was 5 of you, correct?
Yes, there was. And so they ended up choosing the Marines out of my unit, at least in the company.
And that's another thing. This man claims that there was 4 other witnesses. Can we have the names of the 4 other witnesses? Can we interview those other witnesses who will corroborate seeing a huge UFO and human trafficking? Or are they going to have an entirely different story? And let's be clear, we are going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find the names of every other person in his unit. And I don't care what I have to do. We'll go to peoplefinder.com and we'll try to contact everybody else that was in his Marine unit at that time and place. And we'll see if anybody else saw an octagonal UFO being used in, well, take your pick. It's multiple choice. Either a human trafficking operation, a drug running operation, or what was the other one? Or a gun running operation. The story keeps changing. But we're going to talk to the other people in his unit, including and up to his commanding officer. I'm going to find out who his commanding officer is, and I'm going to get an interview with him. We're going to take selected clips of this guy telling this story, and then I want to know from his commanding officer if any of this is true or not.
Company to go out. So it's not like every single Marine in the company was able to do this. They just handpicked people to go on these sticks of 6 Marines. So originally it was supposed to be more of like a deterrence, but also overwatch protection. So that way these helos can drop the supplies, the logistics groups that were part.
You know, I don't know if this is relevant, but I think it is. This guy's got a bunch of what could only be described as what I would call crystal hippie bitch bracelets on, right? And weird jewelry. Does that mean that this man is sort of a new ager? I think so, but that's just my take on it. Your analysis or take on that may be different. Is that relevant? I don't know. It's relevant to me because if this guy is sort of this guy also lives in Colorado, which is a hot spot for new age people, including David Grush and countless other new agers, right? And people of, let's just say, questionable beliefs.
Part of it can then render aid or whatever it is to the local population there.
Was it volunteer or were you hand selected?
By the way, I'm told by a military source that if you go on a humanitarian mission, you get a badge or some citation for that. Where's his? Can he show us a citation for going on this humanitarian mission? Did they give him a badge or, you know, a little medal or a ribbon for going on that humanitarian mission? Every humanitarian mission that people get sent on in the United States military, you get something that says, I was part of that humanitarian mission. Where's his? He has yet to show it.
Selected.
Okay.
Or voluntold, I should say.
Okay. Voluntold. Good way to put it.
Yep.
And I'm just curious, you know, what are you hoping to accomplish by coming out?
I want other people who have witnessed similar things or are part of certain things that are very controversial but end up being true to come out and understand that what's going on is not acceptable. And this is just a fast of corruption. It may not be the political corruption that's coming out now that people are witnessing with their own eyes. People call them conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and I would be curious. I have some questions for this person, like how much were you paid to be a part of Stephen Greer's event? Or did he just keep the $500 a ticket for all those people who attended to hear your story? Either way is troubling to me. It'd be more troubling if he was taking money. I'd like to know, is there a financial end to this for him? I'd like to know that. No one has asked him that yet.
What I'm hoping to achieve is to get other people on board to understand that the government supports what we're doing because they were in the dark about this too. And now they're coming out and they're actually putting the hammer down. Recent bills have been passing as far as the legislation to this.
Yeah, somebody gave this guy talking points because they echo Greer's. Isn't that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Senate Intelligence Committee saying that these corporations have to give the goods here in 6 months or else there's going to be some consequences they're going to face either through the judicial system, which obviously the government's got a lot of weight with that. The other aspect of it too is that they're going to ban these companies from doing contracting work for the government, which means they're going to lose billions of dollars. They're going to go broke. So I'm hoping that they actually comply with this measure because one, this technology is going to help benefit humanity as a whole.
Oh yeah, these are Stephen Greer's talking points. This technology is going to save the world. Where have we heard that before? We'll get free energy. We'll get new transportation devices. We'll all sing Kumbaya in a big circle together. There'll be world peace. We won't have to fight over oil. These are all Stephen Greer's talking points. And we want to thank the amazing Mystico who made me laugh because he said, take this, YouTube. Praise the cash. Yes, absolutely. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And today, we are pulling out the cash clown for anybody that throws a couple bucks in our hat. There's a money button down there. We appreciate it. Thank you, the amazing Mystico, making up for YouTube demonetizing our broadcast before it's even finished being broadcast. Praise the cash, the amazing Mystico.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate you and all of you kind and generous benefactors. I appreciate all of you. Let me see if we catch up here, and we'll continue our journey.
Not in a militaristic sense, because that's just foolish. It's more to help out humanity, because now everybody's going to be on the same level technology-wise. I think the common ground here, and the narrative with that is you're hearing people.
By the way, we have Gunner 65 here, former Marine himself and an expert at investigating military claims. Gunner 65, I hate to ask you because I know I've already got Gunner 65 working on another project, but we need to open up a full court press investigation into this man and his claims. Maybe we can hurry up and finish the other one and do this. I'd appreciate your insight and your expertise in verifying his claims.
Come out, at least in the mainstream media, is trying to talk about ETs being able. My event had nothing to do with ETs. And there's some misconstrued concepts that are going about. The technology may have came from ETs at one point.
Oh, alien reproduction vehicles. More Stephen Greer talking points.
And that's what we witnessed. But we witnessed much more of a sinister plot with this, that they're using it. For people who don't know, 2009 during this operation, that's why we're responding, obviously, with the humanitarian nature of this, because
why would this guy wait 14 years to come out and tell his story? That also doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, that's mainly what the expertise is, at least as far as Marines go. It's not really combat operations for the most part, even though Indonesia, among other parts in that world, are large networks for terrorists and insurgents.
Mm-hmm.
So having that expertise of going in and try to help people, I think is also good to us, because it teaches you the balance of it. Instead of being a war fighter, you actually get to help people. Instead of, launching bullets at people, you're still helping people in a different cause. You still get to be heroes for people, which is great. So,
wow, this guy must like jewelry. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 wristbands and
totally
rings.
incidental as far as our encounter. When we went onto the slub, because we had our LZ, it was a hasty LZ. And they're dropping supplies. They have, a bunch of stuff. And it's other helos too. They're just kind of forming a perimeter on the city, dropping Marines here. You could provide overwatch. Now, the only thing that's unsettling.
Yeah. And out of everybody that was dropped in this operation, only he has come forward about seeing UFOs doing human trafficking, drug trafficking, or gun trafficking. Take your pick. It depends on what venue he's at. The story keeps changing.
With this is the fact that they never gave us any comms. You know as well as I do how risky that is.
They never gave him any comms. They didn't give him a radio, a cell phone, nothing. They just sent him in to what could be a very hostile situation with no communications devices whatsoever. I'm sorry. Go ask any military person that you know. This makes absolutely no sense. Gunner 65 is in the live chat. You were a Marine. Would your commanding officer send you into a foreign nation on a mission with absolutely no communication devices? Does that make sense? Gunner 65 or anybody in the military in the live chat, or hey, everybody in the live chat, go ask anybody you know in the military if that sounds like that makes sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And many real former veterans have told me that alone told them that this guy's full of it.
Didn't have any comms.
We didn't have any comms.
Interesting.
So the Marine that was with me, it was a higher rank than me, was very pissed off about it, because he was a Fallujah Marine, so he went through a lot of shit.
Yeah. And
one of those things, I remember him kept telling me, he's like, if everything ends up going to shit, and you look at me, and if I'm fine, it means that you're going to be fine. And I remember him telling us all that in the stick, and he's a good Marine. He's a very outstanding guy. I learned a lot from him during my time in. And I thought about that concept, but
he can't name the guy that was with him, the higher rank individual that was upset over no comms. Why can't this man name one of the 4 other witnesses to come forward and corroborate his story? What we get, if you ask that question, is a lot of excuses, right? It's ridiculous, right? You got 4 other people that could corroborate this story, and not one of them is willing to come forward and say, yeah, I was there. He's telling the truth. I seen it all.
And he started picking things apart too. He wasn't very comfortable with that. But luckily the thing was that we were still relatively, close enough to the LZ, because when the bird was supposed to land, because obviously they were coming in, dropping the supplies, and they'd bank off.
Close enough to the LZ. LZ is landing zone in military jargon for those that have never been in the military. Just figured I'd point that out.
The last one that would come down would land. That's when we'd basically run to the helo 300 meters. You're in good shape, and you have an average combat load, 120 rounds, so to speak, with an M16A4 and a Camelback. Not really much, so you can make that trek relatively quick.
Yeah, and by the way, just a point of data that's important. Some researchers who were military men looked into this situation of a natural disaster in Indonesia in 2009. And what they found was all kinds of military activity going on in Indonesia. There were military personnel being flown in and out, multiple aircraft, including helicopters, C-130s, and transport planes, and other military planes in that area. And nobody saw a UFO but this guy. I think that is highly suspicious and casts a lot of doubt on this man's credibility. He can't produce the 4 other corroborating witnesses, or he refuses to. And none of the military pilots flying in that area at the exact time that he claims he saw a UFO hover and then shoot off into the sky, nobody saw it but him. Okay.
But they also have security on those birds too. With the flight crew, with the gunners on the sides, they had 50s on them. So if there is some opposition, they're going to meet with those on top of us engaging them. So we were positioned near the slope. It wasn't like a steep grade or anything, but it was enough to obscure what was going on the other side that we had no idea what was going on. So we got, naturally you want to take the high ground so you have observation of everything. And this is when we came across this operation. And it was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, because here you have terrain that is a jungle terrain, very green vegetation, things like that. And then you have something that's sticking out right in the middle of an opening, and it looks very odd. It's something that's, I'll remember till the rest of my life, to the day that I leave this earth. I'm going to remember seeing that, and it's just imprisoned up here.
Well, very dramatic. But essentially what this man saw is some military people with weapons, and some, what he described as military trucks, loading what he described as a UFO. I mean, I don't understand why this couldn't be. Is there a prosaic explanation? Well, I don't know about the UFO, but for the rest of it, you're in the middle of a foreign country in a jungle. Could have been anything. It could have been, I don't know, security for a local farm, loading equipment into something. It could have been many things. This guy jumps right to human trafficking, drug running, or what was it? We have drugs, guns, and human trafficking. It had to be that those cases contained either people or guns or drugs. And his only evidence of that is he saw an oxygen tank, or what he said was an oxygen tank, on one of the trucks, and somebody at a Greer event told him those weren't guns, those were people in those cases. And now we get new fantastical claims with zero evidence. There was no evidence that what he saw was drugs being loaded into whatever he saw. There was no evidence that there were guns inside he saw cases being loaded into something. Could it have been some sort of black ops transport machine that he was unfamiliar with? I think that that's a very good possibility. But to jump right to that's an alien reproduction vehicle or alien-based UFO that was derived from alien technology, how does this guy know? None of this makes any sense. Welcome to Stephen Greer's UFO fake whistleblower clown show. And again, he has no evidence of anything he's saying. None. He could provide corroborating witnesses, but refuses to. He could show us, some proof that he was involved in a humanitarian mission in Indonesia in 2009, like all military people who would get, but he refuses to do that. this is very, very suspicious.
I had a camera with me. It was a Panasonic cheap camera. You know, it had kind of like
So they won't let you have any communications devices, but they let you take a camera with you, because that makes sense. Hey, in case you want to take some selfies with the natives, you know, make sure you take your camera, but we won't let you have a radio or a cell phone or a satellite communications phone or anything. None of this makes any sense.
you know, ancient compared to what you got set up in the studio, you know, but it was enough at least because it was part of stuff that I've never did a humanitarian assistance before. So I was taking videos of them dropping stuff off, things like that, until we tracked up to this point. Was taking some pictures because it's a place you would never really ever go to, at least a real part of Indonesia. It's not like Bali or Surabaya where it's like touristy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, this is where it's actual culture people. You're actually seeing reality here. So it's stuff that I kind of wanted to document and just say, you know, I was a part of this. I can look back and say, you know, oh, I remember that. But then looking north past that slope and seeing that down, and I took some video and some pictures of that. And I had, you know, I stuck it in my dump pouch. You know, I was a saw gunner naturally, you know, so I had M249.
And of course, he had a camera, but he couldn't take any pictures of the UFO or the drug running, human trafficking, or gun running operation that he came across because they took the camera from him, right?
And that was my favorite weapon. I liked having a belt-fed machine gun. As much as a pain in the ass, I liked having that compared to an M16 or an M4. So because we were in a humanitarian, all they did was give us a M16A4s. You know, they had it, RCOs at that time. They weren't the ACOGs that had the mills on the sides for windage and stuff like that. As well as the PEC 15s, you know, so if we were doing any kind of night range or night operation, we'd have those with our PBS 14s.
Yeah, and he drops a lot of military jargon. I've noticed that. Is that supposed to be some sort of prover maneuver? I really was in the military. Listen to my military jargon about the different guns I like, and you know, irrelevant to the story, but okay.
So it's just a very basic loadout that we were doing, you know, nothing really crazy. And when we saw this happen, and I want to say unidentified because right now it's identified. Everybody knows what they are now.
What archives?
They're either man-made or they're not. And if they're not, the government's coming out and telling people, admitting it, not directly, but they're still admitting it.
He's not going to have any credibility when these stories
why would they spend time
down
with this legislation coming out?
That's a good point.
Why would they do that? If it doesn't exist, why were they going through these measures to basically hold a gun up to these guys' heads and say, you better relinquish this technology or else?
Oh, yeah. Absence of evidence is not evidence. You know, I don't understand a lot of this. You know, they're passing legislation, you know, to prevent cover-ups. So there must be a cover-up. No, maybe they're just passing legislation to satisfy UFO wackadoos who constantly harass them about a cover-up or to prove that there isn't one.
They're not just doing it and knowing and seeing this unfold, even being in this position of having to brief the Senate intelligence among the Special Intelligence Service too, which oversees.
Yeah, this when these stories come crashing down, this host's credibility will be in the crapper. But by then, he will have made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of this garbage. $20,000 to $30,000 a video. He's got 3 whistleblowers, maybe 4, and Greer. So that's like 4 or 5 episodes that he could make 20 to 30,000 from. He's done 2 with Greer that made 20 to 30,000. What are we up to? $90,000 perhaps already with 2 Greer interviews and 1 interview with this guy. This host could be up to $90,000. He's got 2 more parts with this guy. And then what is he going to do? 3 parts with each other whistleblower? He could literally make hundreds of thousands of dollars before all these stories come crashing down. And then he'll do what everybody does, the Cosmic Con shuffle. Just shuffle off and hope everybody forgets that you were pushing 100% provably fake stories for money. And then you know what you do? You find new stories to push for money. That's what I predict. I predict that this is all going to come crashing down on this guy, but it won't matter because by then he'll be on to some other, you know, clickbait garbage that he could sell. Yes, there's stories about Biden meeting aliens at Lockheed Martin right now. The garbage peddling is getting really ramped up. And Artisan Tony is here and says, this is one of those stories where the general event probably happened enough to make it seem plausible. but the UFO part is an add-in to the story. Yeah, could very well be that he never saw a UFO, but hey, if we add a UFO into the story, it gets much, much better. DJ808 AudioViz says, I have less than zero doubt that there is indeed a cover-up. Yeah, I mean, I know there is, and there's substantial and supportive proof that the government has actively covered up UFO things, but usually it's to protect national security and secret black projects that they don't want us to know that they have. It doesn't mean Stormcrow. Thanks for being a member. They are passing legislation to go after people like you, Truthseekers. Well, funny you should mention that. Yeah, I should talk about this. I have in my possession material, and this is the first time I've ever publicly acknowledged this. I have in my possession material which I was told came from a UFO crash. So am I covered in that legislation? Can they come and confiscate my alleged UFO crash material, which, by the way, amounts to metal fragments that appear to have been melted and reconstituted? That's all I've been able to tell so far. I'm not a scientist. I've been looking for a scientist that would be willing to do an elemental analysis and tell me what this material is comprised of. Is it from Earth star system or not? But I'm in possession of what the person who gave it to me claimed was UFO crash debris, metal samples, essentially. Could that legislation affect me? I think it could. I don't know. Do I got to get a lawyer to keep my UFO crash material? I don't know.
These letter agencies, because they have no idea what's going on either. But the fact that all of us coming together and making this loud amount of noise to get something done about it is just astounding. And now they're finally, for the first time in history, they're going through with this and actually trying to do something about it for their own understanding, but also know the corruption that's comes from this. Yeah, it's multiple different facets.
I mean, you guys already, all five of you, right, already testified in front of Congress.
So we testified to people of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which were there's some Congress people there as well as some senators.
So in front of the
No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, and you know,
I don't think
and
I
you know
did.
as well as I do in any kind of setting like that, whether you're a SCIF, it's all under.
Oh yeah,
oath
you're
still,
right. I
because
might
they're
have.
signing,
Might have
having you
mentioned
sign NDAs and things like that. So you're expected to be truthful with this.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the reaction, it is a very big deal. It was nerve-wracking at first because I'm not used to talking to government officials in that nature.
Yeah, so this guy apparently testified to Arrow and some other people telling them his story. And we heard nothing about that. So does that mean the government didn't really believe him or care? I think so. We might have heard more about it, right?
And having the support that they've been giving me as well as the protection is just something that I'm very thankful for. I'm very thankful that they all have open minds.
I can send you that
of this subject.
If you conceal carry, then I want to show you something.
Yeah. Unlike us, Mr. Ryan can be fully monetized. He's got a big long commercial. Okay, we'll back it up just a little bit. Just bear with me, friends. We don't want to replay you commercials from Mr. Shawn Ryan's channel. Nice that he could be fully monetized and we get demonetized before the broadcast is even completed somehow. And that really makes me think that there is a thumb on the scale. I mean, it's not a stretch to think that if a CIA asset is charged with something like, hey, we need you to spread UFO disinformation out in the media into the public, that if they can put their thumb on the scale and put CIA assets out to spread disinformation, maybe they can put their thumb on the scale to stop people from stopping that misinformation or disinformation from being believed. I'm not saying I'm a victim of any conspiracy here. This is just things that people have suggested to me, which may or may not be the case. There's got to be a reason, however, that a CIA asset is allowed to spread this stuff. But if you're critical of the CIA asset doing so, you're demonetized and he's fully monetized. welcome to the brave new, strange new world that I find myself
Going
in.
back to the event, we decided to get in a tactical column and approach this, right? And we got down the slope, and it's just like a clearing and just has this big opening. It's almost a little bit more than the football field because this craft took up majority of that.
So let's just back up for a minute. Let's describe the setting, because at first you said there were helos doing racetracks
Yes.
around. Is
That's
this the same
helicopters.
opening that you described earlier that you were watching helos drop supplies?
No.
Okay.
So where this was happening was southwest, at least where the helo insertion points were with the LZs that they were setting up, and they were flying very low in consideration, right? So, and the reason why I know this is because I asked the pilots after this, because I was in the officers' mess and I knew their call signs, and I approached them and I asked them very respectfully if they noticed anything strange. None of them said anything.
Okay.
So I was trying to see if they could get a view of a topside, because this is just something that's crazy, right?
Yeah. So suddenly they come across this huge UFO. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
also their call signs all stuck out too, you know, because pilots like to do crazy stuff with their call signs. So it was very easy to track them down. But having this happen on the north part of the slope and it goes down, and obviously, you know, the way it was transitioning colors, which was kind of the way that it appealed, because it was transitioning for a light matte black, or no, sorry, a light matte gray to a dark matte black, and just kind of ranging in between, right?
Let's rewind a little bit before we get into the.
But it might have
description.
come from someone like
How
that.
far? So, what was the activity with all the other helicopters? Were they active at the time that you saw the?
Honestly,
UAP?
When we started going down there, no.
Okay.
And I don't know, because obviously we're occupied with this.
How far do you think it was?
So from the LZ where we were at was 300 meters roughly. Okay. Plus the slope that was concealing plus vegetation. Down the slope, it was like 400 meters, maybe. So we got close. We trucked down quite a bit.
Okay.
Human
About 150
trafficking
meters outside.
operation
150, 200, right? Halfway.
with no
And
So
proof.
maybe about a clip.
Yeah, I love how you can make claims with absolutely no evidence on YouTube and be monetized, but you know, be critical of those claims with it that have no evidence. And thank you, UFO John Doe, for a kind and generous $4.99 super chat. Says, "Here's to truth. Cheers. Keep kicking doors in and exposing the frauds, Con. You pulled me out of the rabbit hole and showed me subtle techniques they use." Thank you, UFO John Doe. I appreciate your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. And we thank you for helping us, of course, to praise the cash. Thank you, UFO John Doe.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you, UFO John Doe. I appreciate you. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. Longtime show supporter. We appreciate all of
Look
you.
away.
Possibly. Yeah.
At the
The
farthest.
craft itself might have been a click up.
Okay.
Yeah. And as like I said, the reason why I know how big this thing was, because
Did you see it as you crested the
Yes.
the hill?
yes, I did. And that's where I took videos and pictures of this thing. That's how I was able to see it, because, you know, taking pictures of the chaos going behind and everything.
But so he took pictures and videos of it, but there's a convenient excuse as to why we can't see the pictures and videos, and all we get is some pretty illustrations, you know, artist renderings done by Michael Schratt.
You see in the rubble of burning buildings, flooding and all that kind of stuff. And then you turn around, I'm like,
So you crest this hill.
yep,
You look down into the valley.
yep.
And there's a clearing
There's a clearing.
with a UAP
Yes.
just sitting there.
Sitting there
hovering.
rotating clockwise. Yep. And that's in transition to
And please be sure that you notice that the CIA asset, Shawn Ryan, I have not heard him use the term UFO. He uses the CIA term, UAP. You know, that new term for UFOs that got pushed from 2016 forward. By who? Intelligence assets. Members of the intelligence community rebranded UFO to be UAP. I don't think it's a coincidence that a CIA asset is using CIA terminology in describing a UFO as a UAP.
this color spectrum I was telling you too. And that's why it's kind of something that stuck out. It's not a building, you know, it's not something that you're used to seeing. Maybe topside, it could have looked like a building or something that, you know, I don't know. I don't have that perspective. I wasn't a pilot or anything, but I can tell you from our point of view, it's something that it looked very unnatural and abnormal.
Yeah, and by the way, he described it as an octagonal-shaped craft. There are many octagonal-shaped buildings in Asia, and this is in Indonesia. There are many octagonal-shaped buildings. Look it up. So my first thought when hearing this story is he could have seen some kind of weird octagonal-shaped building somehow and thought it was something it wasn't. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
And that's what got our curiosity to go investigate this. Now, normally because we would have had comms, you're damn right we'd have called it in. Report something suspicious. Maybe get some eyes on a helo, get a hold of their call signs and try to do them fly around, and they never did. And obviously we didn't have comms to do it, but they were more occupied with what was going on behind us. So when we trekked down and got around 150 to 200 meters from it, and this is an opening. By the way, there's no tactical advantage being in this situation because you don't have cover. It's jungle. You have concealment, but this kind of concealment with vegetation is not bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting that they just left 5 Marines out in a foreign country with no communications devices. What happens if somebody had a fatal or near fatal snake bite in the middle of the jungle? You can't call for any help. What happens if somebody fell down a ravine and broke their leg? You can't call for any help? This makes absolutely no sense. There's 1,000 reasons why the military wouldn't just throw service members out into a foreign country in the middle of a natural disaster with no communications devices. I'm sorry that I'm harping on this, but this really sheds a lot of light on this guy and his story. It's just completely implausible that they would put him out into a foreign country in the middle of a natural disaster with 4 other service members with absolutely no way to communicate with their superiors or their home base or to call for help.
So when we trekked up close, and we were attack column, so obviously you have points here, right, each Marine. So you have visuals of the sides, somebody has point and somebody has the rear. And all of a sudden we're enveloped by this military force of, I still to this day don't know who they are. And
How close did you get
to the craft?
to the craft?
Roughly 200 meters, 150, 200.
Did you get to the bottom of the hill?
Yes.
So you could see, so you saw the top of it, and then you could see underneath of it.
And underneath of it had this platform that was on the ground that was separate from this craft hovering. And it was very weird to see. And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's kind of like a cement pad or something. I don't know if it was like a helo pad or anything like that at first.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I guess I should show you, I can show you an illustration of what he claims he saw. 1 second, let me get it. Emily Louise showed that. So here, this is what he claims that he saw. Great illustration, but we don't get, a real photo or anything like that. Take from that what you will. And we'll go back to the video.
First, but then start seeing how the material kind of looked very similar to what the craft was. It's like, well, that's separate. So you have something that's on the ground, stationary, and then you have something that's up top, and it's just rotating in a clockwise position. So right when we got close to it,
that's a problem.
For a narrative.
Oop, I'm sorry. Oh no, I lost our place. So, oh geez, hold on, friends, 1 second. We have to fast forward through the commercials. 1 second. All right, I found a place again. This is a problem. This person suggests that the craft was rotating around. There was a stationary platform, and that the craft was rotating in a clockwise position, rotating above this supposed, landing platform, or what you would call that. It was rotating in a clockwise position. So, I'm sorry that I have questions, but if it's rotating in a clockwise position the entire time you're seeing it, how are they loading anything into the craft? Does this, jump out at anybody else as a red flag? He claims that he saw these people loading the craft. It was rotating in a clockwise position when he seen it. So How are they loading a rotating craft? What is there, like some porthole that's open and you got to time your throws into the, hurry up, throw it, the thing's spinning, throw it in there. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And that's one of those red flags that I think are important. This is the minutia of a story that a proper analyst would ask questions about, but Shawn Ryan's not going to ask him that.
And you have something that's up top and it's just rotating in that clockwise position. So right when we got close to it, at least 150, 200 meters out, then all of a sudden we were engaged, at least not in a hostile manner, at least not gunfire or firefight or anything like that. But the way that these guys moved was so fluid, it was so still, it was very, very, very smooth. And it kind of indicated to me after thinking about it for several years is that these guys have done it for a while because of how smooth this operation was. Mm-hmm. So when we were in a tactical column going towards the center of this thing.
He's been hit by a smooth criminal. They were a smooth operation. God, why am I listening to this?
They actually came from the flanks, but it was more of a diagonal, like a corner of the room, so to speak, right? For them, at a tactical advantage, they have interlocking fields of fire on every single person, and they had a team of 8, right? And the gear that they had was black OTV vests. They had black camouflage utilities.
What you're saying is there would have been no They were professionals.
Yes,
there would have been no Mexican standoff where if they fired, they're shooting into their other squad. They had perfect angles.
Yes, they did,
to where both sides could engage you.
Yes,
they dropped the dime on those guys. They had them in their sights.
Before a team of 4, so it was like a fire team element.
Without worrying about a blue on blue situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, with that being said, because as they approached us, you hear the safeties flip off. Now, your attention to detail when you're seeing this kind of stuff, your sensors are very heightened, so you can pick up. I know you've been a combat veteran, you know all about that. Your heightened sense of awareness is going through astronomical changes.
Hypervigilant.
Yes. So you can hear stuff a lot clearer. And that's where you kind of picked up the hum that this object was doing along with these guys flipping their safeties off.
And this was interesting to me after all. In my own experience, I heard a slight hum of the craft that I saw as a child. I felt electrical disturbance, electrical charge, I should say, in the air, and I smelled something strange, which I later found out in a high school chemistry class that what I smelled during my own experience was ozone, leading me to believe that whatever I saw was some strange craft powered by some sort of electric propulsion system. And I have heard many people describe UFO encounters similarly. Claiming to hear a hum or electrical hum or what sounded like an electric motor spinning or feel electrical discharge or even smell ozone.
Especially M4s, it's very distinct sound. Anybody in this room who's held M4s and has shot them, M16s, things like that, it's very distinct sound to flipping it off. So we kind of knew, and they started yelling at us,
And I'm not doubting him, but I've shot a lot of guns, and I don't know that I can hear somebody click a safety off. But okay.
They were like, you're not supposed to fucking be here. What the fuck are you guys doing here? Who the fuck are you with? So they knew they were using the kind of lingo that we were using too, especially in the military. So it made me think that at some point these guys actually were uniformed military at one point.
Any accents?
Not accents. It's just like American dialects, how you and I are talking. At one point they said they were going to smoke us. They could throw us out of a helicopter. It's very easy to get lost in the jungle out here. They kept saying stuff like that. So after they enveloped us,
very threatening, right?
All pretty much got in line. They told us to put our weapons, so we all got in line as well. And we had our hands up. We had our weapons slung. And they're having 2 guys watch while there's a guy basically taking our magazines out of our vest. And they're throwing them on the deck and they're kicking them away so we don't have time to react. They also, at the same time, the first thing they did was obviously take our weapon and clear it. But they took the magazine out and they actually held it in a way to where they could pull a charging handle and collect the round and have it not hit the deck. So the way that these guys operated was very smooth.
Here we go again. Smooth. They were smooth operators, right? Okay.
Very calculated, very precise. You could tell they've done this a lot and they've rehearsed it a lot. You know, especially combat operations, you're doing terrain model rehearsals, you're doing rehearsals, whether you're clearing rooms, trying to figure all that kind of stuff out. These guys kind of did the same thing, I'm assuming, because of how smooth it was.
There you go, half-baked carbs.
And because you know as well as I do, you have new guys that join a unit and they're not that fresh. You know, they're very choppy because they have the basic understanding of either how to stack up and do room clearing. And the guys that have done it and been through combat deployments and all that, they're very kind of methodical, very smooth because they know what to expect. These new guys, it's not the same thing. You could tell these guys were seasoned. So as they did that, they actually, each Marine had 2 guys on them, plus one that was taking the stuff off of them. They actually knew where our military IDs were because in Marine Corps order, you have to have them in your left breast pocket.
So there were 15 of these guys, 3 on each Marine.
No. So they had other guys right here, and they had 3 that were just going through each Marine,
okay,
while other people were holding each Marine at gunpoint. And they're not like super close to us range wise with because if you get a muzzle close, I mean it's easy to grab it and kind of fend off, especially with a rifle. But these guys were at the standoff distance that even if you try to move, they could smoke you.
One search team of 3 guys.
Yes.
And then the rest of the squad was
right.
Yes.
It's just like one of those things. I have
so,
one
and
of those.
again, they're not anywhere where they could actually. There was people behind us because obviously, if they had to
UFO
engage,
disease,
one of their own guys probably. So it's more like they were kind of moving the same way through all of us, all 6 of us, taking our stuff, taking pictures of our military IDs. So they had like these devices that kind of look like a very thin. It looked like a smartphone modern day right now because in 2009 it wasn't the case. I think the most high tech thing they had at that time were maybe
Blackberries, half-baked car
at that point with the ball, and then they had their flip phone razors and things like that. But these look like something you'd see today. And they were taking pictures of military IDs, and they had some other device that was like remind me of a bat system. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, so they had super advanced technology, cell phones 15 years ahead of technology at the time. Okay.
Describe it.
It's like a biometrics tracking system. So what it does is when you come across with an insurgent, you can take pictures of their face, their retinas, fingerprints, something like that. But they were trying to scan our IDs with this thing, and it wasn't working. So they're kind of getting frustrated with it. So as this is going on,
did they collect biometrics from you?
No.
Okay.
No. They took pictures of us, but that may be enough. And then they took our IDs, because some people I talked to that are in the special operations community with that, they said, yeah, we have the ability to scan IDs and it tells us everything about you. Military IDs, driver license, things like that. So it's very high speed stuff. And considering this was in 2009 compared to now, of course, they had this thing that they were using to load up stuff. Penny. It's very advanced physics, something hovering off the ground, not making any sound, but an audible hum, like a guitar amp or something that's like a transformer.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that, even somebody that's in the military has no idea what kind of black projects there are out there or the origin of them. So to jump right to this is an alien vehicle or a vehicle derived from aliens is a bridge too far for me. He's not a physicist. He's not an engineer. He's certainly not an aerospace engineer, and he doesn't know what is in the United States arsenal of craft. So, for all we know, he saw some sort of secret craft that's used in the military or whatever that he was simply not aware of. I think a lot of these stories come from ignorance of black projects.
So it didn't sound like a jet.
No.
Didn't sound like a helicopter. No. There was no engine noise.
Nope.
Yes, an American dialect. And thanks for being a member.
It's very creepy to see because it's not normal.
Was it like a bassy hum?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Like a guitar. Like if you were to unplug it, it wasn't the same pitch, but it was like the same.
I agree, Kevin.
Same kind of sound, same kind of noise that it emitted. And so as they're searching us, we're watching this thing happen. And that's when we started seeing trucks come from our left.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of these so-called new whistleblowers stories perfectly match with existing UFO lore and mythology. He's even repeating Stephen Greer's talking points during this interview.
Left and go onto this platform. And they were up armored 350s. I know exactly what 350s are. They were kind of beefier trucks. They were matte black. When they were coming at us, and they go left. And I was glancing between what was going on in front of us with these guys, and then all of a sudden glancing over to what was going on behind them. And that's when I started seeing the key details of this thing. Like it had like a scale pattern on it, kind of like an octagonal, because the craft itself was like an octagonal shape where you could see points. Had a pyramid structure on top that was black, and you can see the shadowing of it as it rotated. But it was rotating very slow. And then
Okay, so it was rotating very slow as they were loading drugs, weapons, or humans in these cases. We're not sure which. He's not sure which. Was it guns? Was it humans in the cases? Was it weapons? It depends on when you ask him. Because his story is getting more and more complicated and fantastical the longer he is getting media attention.
it had like these vents on every single corner on the middle part of these the panels anyway. There was like a Vanta black. It was like a dark black that would like absorb light. Very weird.
What do you mean by that? A dark black that would absorb light?
So, if you ever familiar with the BMW, they painted Vanta black. It was like a very super dark black. It's not like a reflective material at all.
The matte black?
Yeah, but very, very, very even darker than matte black.
Okay.
Like you can shine a light at it and it won't even illuminate.
Like the Batmobile.
Kind of. Something like that. But even it was.
All right, you heard it here first. The UFO had the same skin as the Batmobile, or at least the same paint job. This is getting more and more ridiculous.
Like very dark. The only way I can describe it was like the Vanta black.
Okay.
And so
when you mean absorb light, you're saying if I shine a laser on it, you might not even see the laser,
Correct.
or it would be very dull.
Correct.
Okay.
Something like that. So we're watching these vehicles, right? These trucks. Now, the thing I would say on the front of them, because Humvees, the military has, they have the IR lights on the front near the headlights that you can drive at nighttime with your knots. So they had the same thing because they had the same kind of slits that had the IR lights. But they had
okay, so we've got trucks with night vision lights on the front of them. He said F-350s, which means sort of a pickup truck, not a Humvee.
weapon cases in the back of each truck bed. And, you could store like a couple hundred weapons, maybe 100 weapons, maybe a platoon, a company size element. And
okay, so the cases were big enough to store 100 weapons in. I wonder how much drugs or people you can store. Yeah.
And it was the same Pelican casings that we would use to store stuff when they were transporting, so very big cases on 2 of them in each truck bed. And then they had a shipping container thing. I mean, it looked like a shipping container, but smaller and half the size. And the thing that was different about this is I had a cylinder on the front of it that was towards the truck. It was like parallel to the ground, just a cylinder right on the top of this thing. And for years I thought, okay, like there's got to be oxygen supply or like a vacuum sealing thing that you would, because obviously I'm thinking it's drugs.
Yeah, this was his first story, that it was drug trafficking with a UFO. And then it sort of changed to gun trafficking with a UFO. And now we've thrown away those first 2 stories. And now I suspect, because it's a lot more sensational and relevant to some of the, let's just say, Q-inclined people, now it's human trafficking. He previously said that it had to be drug trafficking because of that oxygen tank, which is used for shrink wrapping bricks of drugs. Couldn't be an oxygen tank for any other use. It has to be for that. Except then he changed the story to guns. Then he changed the story to human trafficking.
I was like, okay, so this is a very advanced way to do that. Just years of thinking of this. And come to find out, when I gave my speech in D.C. on...
And here it is. Here, he claims that his story changed because a guy at a Stephen Greer event told him that wasn't guns or drugs in those cases. Those were people.
That Saturday for the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer, he's got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, by the way. And this gentleman, I'm not going to give any detail. I know a little bit about him, but he works in some of these projects that some very controversial facilities.
Yes. So a completely and totally anonymous source told him this, and he just ran with it with no proof, no evidence, no corroboration. Just a guy told me it was humans in those cases.
He's aware of what was going on. After I gave my presentation of this, he confirmed, he says, no, he's like, I don't want to leave Michael hanging out there, but I was not expecting to come and talk to you about this. And he went explaining what the operations do, why they do it. and what they were using them for. And he says there's not drugs that they're putting in these shipping containers. He says it's humans.
Human trafficking.
Yes. His own words. And, of course, and he also wants to come forward, at least with him and 30 other people that are involved with that part of the work. But it was very disheartening to actually get that information relayed to me, because here I'm thinking for years it's drugs and it's a much sinister thing. But it makes sense.
Oh, yeah, because the story gets more sensational as we go. First it was guns, then it was drugs, or was it first guns, then drugs? I don't remember the exact sequence of how this guy's story keeps changing. Now it's humans in those containers. Why? Because an anonymous source, who I won't name, told me it was people. He confirmed it. Great.
Sense because they use natural disasters, or people are going to be missing anyway.
Yep.
Scoop up people.
I mean, I've been covering human trafficking this year.
Right.
And that's, a lot of the human trafficking comes from third world countries.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a very serious issue. And I really take offense to anybody that profits, with unproven, unverifiable stories of human trafficking operations. Oh, I don't know, like this one with a clickbait title, Human Trafficking and UFOs. I mean, if that's not a custom design, U.S. Marine encounters UFO black ops human trafficking operation. There's no proof of that. There's no evidence of human trafficking at this event, other than an anonymous guy at a wackadoo UFO event told me those were people in that case. So how dare these people profit from a completely and totally unproven story with absolutely, this guy didn't even see humans in the cases. Nothing. He saw no evidence of human trafficking, but some guy told me it was human trafficking. So now we could sell the story even better now, because a human trafficking story is much better clickbait, in my opinion, than a gun trafficking story or even a drug trafficking story. We'll say it was people in those cases in our clickbait garbage pedal titles. Great.
In distress. You're in a third world area.
Yep.
In distress right after an earthquake would be, it's prime.
Yeah.
Prime time to do a human trafficking operation.
Right.
How big were the containers?
I would say probably 8 feet and 10 feet, 8 feet tall, 10 feet within.
So like maybe half a Connex box?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
And they were kind of like on the trailer that was underneath was kind of like a regular Humvee trailer that you would see kind of pull stuff, something like that.
How were they being lifted into the craft?
So they were driving onto this platform that was angled, so it would hit and it just raise up, and they're just driving on this ramp.
Oh, the
But
truck
the whole
would go
thing,
up?
yeah, but the whole thing was a ramp,
Okay.
like a circular ramp. And I mean, obviously I can't see what's on the.
And again, he said that the UFO was spinning counter or clockwise. So I'm hoping we hear some explanation of how they're loading things into this octagonal shaped UFO from a truck on top of a platform with a spinning craft.
Excuse me, the other side of it. But I'm assuming because it's a circular pattern that it's going to be the same on the other side. Because they would drive onto this platform, and at that point I saw all the doors open. 4 guys would come out, and then I'd go back to what we're facing here with these guys searching our stuff, asking us questions, taking our IDs, trying to intimidate the crap out of us. And so I can see the guys come out of the truck. And that was making me think too, like at a tactical advantage, we didn't have that.
So guys came out of the truck. I thought he was saying guys came out of the UFO. No, guys came out of the truck.
There's only 6 of us. Basically.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were 6 of him. 6 of him and his unit were 6 people. So there's 5 other witnesses he won't name to this so-called human trafficking operation.
And infantry Marines. And there's these guys here that are, doing this operation and very skilled, very methodical, very calculated, very precise.
Oh, the smooth operators.
And if there's
again.
8 of them, and then all of a sudden every single truck has 4 of these guys, I know that it's not just these guys that are running the perimeter. They could have been 40 or 30 or 40 people.
Yeah.
Could have been a platoon size element. And the fact that we have no concealment, we barely have any concealment, because if we were to run and bank off the sides here to go to our flanks, they could just engage us. There's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
Well, that's an incorrect statement. You're in the middle of a jungle. Okay, though.
Vegetation ain't going to stop bullets, you know. But so there's a lot of questions I have too, because it's, you know, obviously if we would have engaged them, then the whole rest of the force behind us would know about it because they'd have heard the commotion.
Yep. How
Yeah,
many
the other 5 are
containers
hiding from
do
the
you estimate
UFO
were
drug
put
cartel.
into the car?
You're
'cause
right,
I saw
Don.
4 trucks.
4 containers.
Yeah.
I thought
And
he
there could have
said
been more,
5
but at that
total
point where
a
we
little
saw,
while
we
ago,
could have,
too.
you know,
Yeah.
because we stumbled onto this thing. We ruined their operations. so
I
to speak,
agree,
because we
Archaic
weren't allowed to
Revival.
see that.
Nothing to do with
Let's
UFOs.
talk about the craft.
Okay.
How big was it?
300 feet is what I'm estimating, about a football field. And the reason why I say this is because we flew on a CH-53
It was
Super
definitely
Studies.
aliens. It
I'm
had
sure
to
you're
be
familiar with those
taxpayer.
your time as a SEAL. They're roughly 100 feet. All right. So from nose to tail, if you lined up 3 of them, it'd fit 3 of them under this craft, because I can see, you know, especially the operation behind us, you kind of see them off in the distance and you try to gauge.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
as a Marine, you're always trying to judge
Yeah.
distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
let's
if you're having
talk
to
about
engage
this
with
for a
what we
minute.
hold-
This guy said that this thing was spinning clockwise, and he also said they were 8 foot by 10 foot containers. So, I mean, you know, maybe it's not important, but I think it is. How are you lifting and getting an 8 foot by 10 foot container, apparently full of humans, into a spinning UFO that's spinning on a platform? You know, these are the little things that tell me that this story is fake. How are you lifting an 8 foot by 10 foot container full of people and loading it onto a UFO that's spinning clockwise? You know, none of this makes any sense. And this is one of those little things that matter. And that a real interviewer would ask him, like, excuse me, how are they loading this if the thing's spinning? A huge 8 foot by 10 foot container full of people. I'm assuming maybe there's 8 or 10 people inside that container, which would mean that it could be anywhere from, I don't know, 800 to 1,500 or even 2,000 pounds. If you got some fatties in there, some overweight people, who knows? Could be a 2,000-pound container. Where's the crane to lift a 2,000-pound container inside a spinning clockwise UFO? This makes no sense. And a real interviewer, somebody that's not just trying to sell you a fake story, would realize this and ask him to clarify this situation. But we don't get that.
We end up having a surprise right here happen with these guys. But that's how I know it was around 300 feet.
Oh, good. That's a, and it was circular.
Circular. It's like an octagon because it had like corners on it. That was like an octagon shape, but still circular.
Could you see, was it one smooth piece of metal?
No.
Was it panels?
Panels. Yep.
Oh, sorry about that, friends. Yes. Now is a good time to remind you that Shawn Ryan can be fully monetized while selling this garbage, but we can't be. Isn't that great? We can't be monetized to be critical of it, but he can be fully monetized to present a story about human trafficking with absolutely no evidence of human trafficking, except some anonymous source told him there must be people in those containers. Great.
How? Just describe more. Were there windows?
So,
were there
were
openings?
not windows. Nothing I could see like that. They just had that Vanta black vent-looking things on each corner. That's all I saw with that. And it had like an octagonal scale pattern that went through it. It honestly reminded me kind of like a design for an F-22 Raptor.
Okay.
You know, I like the top of it kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of reminded me of with it, because it would transition those colors.
Yeah, we're just going to do a few more minutes of this, or we're going to have to sit through Deliver Your Meat commercial. Besides all of the YouTube ads, Shawn Ryan is making probably more than 20 or 30,000 for a video, because there's something like, I think there is 5 or 6 ad reads in this 1 hour and a half video. Ad reads aren't cheap for a show of this size. You could make thousands of dollars per ad read.
Well, I suspect, you know, I've had people I've talked to about this to say, well, you know, Lockheed Martin has reverse engineer stuff that's circular. Raytheon, they have triangular craft. And they said it might have been Lockheed because Lockheed also made the F-22.
Interesting.
Similar design concept. Now that I think about it, right? Because at this
All
time, you're not really thinking about it.
speculation,
You're like,
no evidence.
I'm more concerned with these guys and who the hell they are. So after we witnessed the last truck going on there, and we're still dealing with that, I got searched already, of course, and I'm just paying attention to what's going on. I'm making sure my guys are good too. And all of a sudden, the trucks, we never saw them again. They were not on that platform. There was like boxes and stuff that were on that platform. And so I'm assuming they either drove off on the other side or disappeared or where they went. I don't know. But all of a sudden, we noticed that this platform raises off the ground by itself. It doesn't make any noise, by the way. It doesn't disturb anything. It's just,
Before it started gaining elevation,
yeah.
How high off the ground was this?
The actual craft?
Yes.
I would say probably 20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, good distance. And the platform rose up, but I'd say like the platform was up several feet, right? Probably maybe 5-6 feet, because it was, from the distance, probably about half an inch.
I mean, I'm just envisioning.
One of the other things that struck me is the incredible detail about very unimportant things.
I'm
That's just my
envisioning
opinion.
the way you're describing this, I'm envisioning an octagon.
Yep.
Rotating clockwise with a drop ramp similar to maybe something you would see on the back of a C-130, C-17, but circular.
But circular and separate. There's no cables. There's no.
Okay.
So even Shawn Ryan acknowledges that he's heard that the thing was rotating. So how are we getting an 8-foot by 10-foot container full of people inside a rotating UFO on a platform? He described no cranes. What are we're just gonna get 10 guys to pick up this huge container and throw it into the spinning UFO? Jeez.
Yeah.
Was the ramp attached to the craft?
No.
So there was just an opening.
There was just an opening, like the bottom part of the craft. Was what I'm assuming, because that's where I saw it lift up and go into. It was like the bottom part. It was like the floor itself was like the platform, and they were just rolled up, right? But at the same time, the top part leveled a little bit and went down to meet with this.
Oh, so maybe they loaded into the bottom. Who knows?
And as that happened, you start to see it rise up past the tree line. It's not like it's super fast and just rapid. It's just like kind of slow. As that's going on, the rotation has not changed. The audible hum has not changed. But
it's not like somebody hit the gas and you hear a different.
Yeah, it's nothing like that.
Noise. It's
no.
just
the rotation has not changed. While they were loading it, the thing was rotating. So I'm still confused about how exactly they're loading 8-foot by 10-foot containers inside a rotating UFO.
Just constant.
Okay.
Each point on that octagonal shape started to illuminate colors. Like, and it was just one color per point. It was red, it was green, it was yellow, and it was blue. It was the only colors I saw. And it was
yeah, because that's what you want to do when you have a top secret aircraft designed to transport human trafficking victims. Apparently, a great thing to do was to get it to light up with all different colors, because that's not suspicious at all. And drawing attention to a huge UFO that's 300 foot in diameter, all lit up, full of human trafficking victims, is not at all going to draw attention. No.
Rotating, right? As soon as it got to the top of the tree line, like cleared the trees, this thing shot off to the left. And to the left was the ocean, by the way. This was going west.
How far to the left was the ocean?
Probably a good 1.5 miles, maybe.
That's it?
Yeah.
So you're right on the coastline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably, I would say maybe. It could be 1.5 miles to 3 miles, I'd estimate, because I mean, that's just estimation. I don't really know, because it took us a little bit when we landed into the near Padang City, because we landed at the airstrip, and then we took like a several-minute flight going from southwest to like northeast part, roughly. So I'd say probably a couple miles to kind of estimate. And
yeah, and I just received a message that Shawn Ryan has already interviewed this Eric Hecker, so he's going to make $20,000 or $30,000 from a plumber that went to the North Pole who lies about being part of a CIA remote viewing program that he never was a part of. But it is what it is. He can still, dump that and save what's left of any credibility he could have, I guess.
Like I said, it didn't change pitches of noise or anything. and it just completely shot off. I mean, it's just like a blur.
Yeah, where have we heard that before? Just shot off, vanished.
That went left. Didn't make a sonic boom like you'd see a fighter jet when you see the pressure that, you know, the way that happened.
Well, you only make a sonic boom if you're doing greater than the speed of sound. How does he know if the craft was doing greater than the speed of sound? But who knows?
It didn't disturb any of the trees like what rotor wash would do on a helo or a jet flying the map of the earth and leaving exhaust and blowing the, you know, you kind of see Top Gun movies when it cranks up on that. Nothing. There were even coconuts that you could visibly see on these trees. None of them were disturbed.
No shit.
Yeah. And me, I like aircraft. You know, that was my thing. You know, I wanted to be a pilot, but that didn't happen. I wanted to fly the Herrera. And I know about aircraft. I know everything that we've got. I know everything about them. You know, from a little kid, that's all I wanted to do. You know, but obviously, then being infantry was the next best thing.
He said he just made a completely and totally factually incorrect statement. He says, "I know everything that we have." No, unless you work at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and I don't know, 6 other aerospace contractors, there's no way that you could know every aircraft that is in the arsenal or available to the United States government, and especially black budget and black ops programs. Does he know what aircraft the CIA have? I don't think so. So, you know, these kind of statements show the ignorance of people and the arrogance. Oh, it had to be aliens because I know everything that we have, and it wasn't one of those airplanes we have.
So it wasn't something I've never seen before, something I know that we didn't have, at least in the conventional wise, on top of the military force that was there.
They say. I think that's it, friends. We're going to check out there. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is this a credible whistleblower? And again, he's a man with a story and no evidence. So I would not call this man a whistleblower. I would call this man a storyteller. He tells interesting. I'll give him this. It's an interesting story, but he has absolutely no evidence. And here's something that we always have to be very, very conscious of. He could provide us with corroborating witnesses, either 4 or 5. I believe at the beginning he said there was 5 of them deployed, and then it was 6. I could be wrong. I'm going to have to review this again. But who cares if it's 4 or 5? There could be 4 or 5 corroborating witnesses that would all be able to back up that this is what happened and this is what they saw. Would I be inclined to believe this story if there were 3 total witnesses all corroborating this is what happened? Much more than one single individual who refuses to provide the names, the ranks, and of the other so-called corroborating witnesses to this event. Also, I don't know what you know about the military, but if you're in a foreign country on a mission and suddenly there are guns put in your face and you are disarmed, there would be an awful lot of reports, an awful lot of paperwork, an awful lot of debriefing going on about what exactly happened and why. This man has provided no documents, no evidence, no proof of anything. And this is why I say, welcome to the UFO Clown Show, because this is a clown show. I'm sorry. It's probably partially my fault. You know, some people get interested. Troll. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. A kind and generous $5 super chat. And thank you for being a member who says YouTube are commies. He said it, not me, YouTube algorithm gods. Don't get angry at our show or me. He's just expressing his opinion. And I can't say that I disagree with that. But, you know, I don't want to suffer any ill effects from the AI YouTube algorithm gods. So we pray that you will find favor with us still. Every day, I got to say a prayer to the YouTube AI algorithm gods for our show to continue to do well. We thank you for helping us to praise the cash. We'll take some comments and questions. Tomfoolery. He's awfully specific for something that happened so long ago. He's full of it. Patty, agreed, Stephen. We can't get a hold of the real thing in the U.S. Yeah. Well, so I just wanted to mention that I've been here too long. I don't mean tonight. I mean in general. I have been involved studying, researching, and investigating the strange and mysterious world of aliens and UFOs for far too long. And I have to say, and freely admit, that when I started, stories were enough for me. I delighted in hearing these stories, imagining the possibilities. What if this is really true? This guy seems like he's telling the truth. His military background's real, or whatever so-called maybe evidence that people provided. But after years and years and years of nothing but stories, I have grown tired of stories with no evidence, or stories which can neither be proven or disproven. This is the concept called falsifiability, which essentially, I can't prove that this guy's story is not true. We can pick apart a lot of things that don't make sense in his story. Other military veterans are calling BS on this guy for the simple reason that he says they deployed him into a foreign nation in the middle of a natural disaster with no communications at all. Every veteran that I've seen talk about this or comment on this said, that's ludicrous, that's insane, this guy's lying. They would not let you just be deployed in a foreign country with no communications devices. Just from a liability perspective, what if somebody fell down a ravine and broke a leg and you couldn't call for a medvac to get him out and he died of injuries sustained, and you were the commanding officers that said, no, you guys can't have any radios? That would be a huge lawsuit. None of this makes any sense. But my point, sorry, getting off in the weeds here, was that I have grown completely and totally tired of all of these people with endless stories with no evidence. Some red flags that we can talk about. The guy can't get his story straight. I'm sure that the story first was drug trafficking. Then it was gun running. Now it's human trafficking, all at the same event. 3 different versions of what was happening and what was being loaded into this octagonal UFO that was spinning. But somehow we don't know how they loaded 8-foot by 10-foot containers full of either drugs, weapons, or people into the UFO. This makes absolutely no sense. And it further makes no sense that he just accepted a story told to him by somebody at a Stephen Greer wackadoo event. Oh, he said it was humans in the case. And the story, this guy's, he's only been here like a month. And maybe a little longer, couple months, and the story has changed at least 3 times now. I find that incredibly suspicious because the truth is the truth is the truth. It remains the truth over a few month period. You know, if the story changed 3 times in 3 months, let's say, for the sake of arguments, there's a real problem here. And additionally, I don't trust anything coming from Dr. Stephen Greer because Dr. Stephen Greer has peddled garbage for 30 years and has never proven anything in 30 years. I think that's important. Now, Stephen Greer has collected millions upon millions of dollars, right? That's what Stephen Greer is great at. Stephen Greer is great at collecting that money. And those UFO, and Stephen Greer runs around, he grabs every one of them UFO dollars he can. We got free energy for you. We got UFO stories. We got an app, and you can talk to aliens too. And the entire time he's doing all this, Stephen Greer is grabbing every dollar from the UFO community that he can get his hands on. But he never proves anything. Literally in 30 years, he has not proven a single thing he said, a single story to be real, true, and accurate when it comes to aliens and so-called alien spacecraft. So And we can pick apart these whistleblowers, as in the case of our fake plumber that saw all of these things in the North Pole. I can't wait to hear. You know what? We're going to cover all these. Every one of these interviews that Shawn Ryan, CIA asset, decides to do. Okay, so he's going to make $30,000 an interview, and we'll be lucky if we make $50 for telling you the truth about it. But I think that this is important enough. And I'm tired of these people making so much money spreading lies, while people who have real and valid questions and arguments and even evidence of fakery, fraudery, and all kinds of scammery going on get penalized. I call it the truth tax. You want to make a lot of money in UFOs? Get some UFO storytellers with no evidence, and you too could make $30,000 per interview helping people sell stories with no evidence. I'm sorry. I have become so increasingly more and more and more cynical about all of this stuff. And by the way, tomorrow night, my cynicism will be in full display because we're going to do a special show on the upcoming UFO hearings that are scheduled for July 26th. But I want to give you a little preview of what we can expect about. One second. I have something to share with you that is very, very troubling. All right. First, I will share this. For those unaware, the UFO hearings are going to be chaired by Tim Burchett, who is a true believer in aliens, I have to say. And the co-chair will be a woman named Anna Paulina Luna. And if we go to her Twitter, we will find out she is a congresswoman, a recent new congresswoman, right? Anna Paulina Luna. And where did she come from? She used to be an Instagram model. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But she was an Instagram model and suddenly became a Trumper. And then she got elected as a congressman after being endorsed by Trump. We tend to stay out of politics. If you love Trump, good for you. If you hate Trump, good for you. I think every politician in the United States are all criminals. But this is very, very concerning. She says, getting materials ready for the House Oversight UAP hearing 726 with Rep. Tim Burchett and Jared Moskowitz and more. And this is what she shared, an image, which is a real problem for me. There's red flags all over this image. First of all, she shows UAP sighting over ocean, I think it says, over the ocean. UAP sighting over the ocean. That's the Batman balloon. Largely been debunked as a Batman balloon. UAP sighting off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. Look, I need a guide for this. So luckily, Charlie Weiser was kind enough, and I tweeted at this woman. I said, Charlie Weiser saved you and everyone else in the Congress and Senate a great deal of time. Most of these are hoaxes, not UFOs or anything out of this world. Why waste senators and congressmen's time with a bunch of proven fakes and nothing burgers? These are all fake UFOs. And here is what this congressperson is preparing for the UFO hearing, UAP hearing, whatever. We've got Corbell's Boca. That's not a UFO. It's been identified as a camera artifact. You know, you remember that, the fake pyramid flying pyramids, spaceships that weren't spaceships. Then we have Ben Hanson's Christmas lights. That wasn't a UFO. It was Christmas lights on somebody's roof. Then we have another Boca. Then we have a Batman balloon. And we also included in these briefing slides or presentation is Corbell's flares, not a real UFO in the bunch that I'm aware of. So here is the person who is chairing this hearing about UFOs next week. And I thought we were going to get proof of non-human intelligence from Dave Grush. I thought we were going to get actual evidence and testimony that the government has recovered alien spacecraft, or that we have bodies of non-human visitors to Earth somehow. But all she's preparing is all of the fake UFOs that we've all seen for the past couple of years, pushed by garbage peddlers like Jeremy Corbell, Ben Hansen, George Knapp. These were all proven to not be UFOs. They were all fake, all of them. And this is what she's preparing for this hearing. Are we going to get a retread of things we already know are fake? Where's the evidence? Where is the evidence of non-human intelligent bodies? Where is the evidence of fully intact recovered alien spacecraft? Someone on Twitter just asked me what I think is going to happen, or what do I think of this upcoming UFO hearing. And I think that we all need to manage our expectations, and that we are likely going to get another huge nothing burger. And we're going to do an entire show on all of this. But here's what I will say. If we don't get proof of non-human bodies recovered by the United States government, and we don't get proof of alien or non-human intelligently designed spacecraft, if you will, all of these people that have pushed this garbage should be banished from the world of UFOs forever for pushing garbage without evidence. I'm still cautiously optimistic. I hope we're going to get some kind of evidence of non-human intelligent visitation on Earth. But all the red flags, and this is another red flag, the fact that the person chairing the hearing is preparing garbage for the hearing. This is all garbage. What she's preparing does not look good. This does not look good. And it gets even worse, friends. It gets even worse because it's not just that she's preparing garbage and fake, provenly fake UFOs for this hearing. And I get that she was an Instagram model, but Charlie Weiser found this as well, which is extremely troubling. UAP facts. Look, Charlie Weiser says, God, this is embarrassing. Who prepared these slides? Why is it barely literate random capitalization? I need no spell check doofus briefing Congress. This is crazy. There's misspelled words. There's improper capitalization. This is who is running the hearing. This does not look good. This doesn't look like we're going to get what we've been promised. And let's be clear, how does this UFO scam work? You sell a story and you overpromise. What have we been promised? We've been promised proof of alien spacecraft recovered intact by the United States government and secret projects covering it up. That's what we've been promised proof and evidence of. What else have we been promised? Proof and evidence of recovered non-human bodies, pilots, if you will, of those non-human intelligence powered or designed or whatever intact craft that are visiting Earth and did not come from human engineers or human design. It had to come from non-human intelligence. That's what we've been promised. And this hearing is supposed to address this Dave Grush's claims. And what are we getting? Apparently, we're getting a retread of fake UFOs pushed by garbage peddling, UFO profiteering whores for years with no evidence and no proof. That's what it looks like we're going to get. Now, maybe we'll get some additional testimony, But will that testimony have teeth? Will there be evidence attached? Or are we going to get more stories with no evidence? I know what I believe. Let me know in the live chat what you think we're going to get. And by the way, I will be covering that hearing live next week. We have to, if somebody please email me if you know what link it will be at or what time it will be at, because I got to try to figure out how I'm going to do this. I have my children all day. You know, I have to figure a workaround for next Wednesday, I believe it is, July 26th, for this hearing. And let me know what you think, either in the comments or in the live chat. Is this going to be another nothing burger with the same old promises from the same old people that are UFO profiteers that have never, ever given us actual evidence? And talk about overpromising. This is how this UFO scam usually works. People overpromise and then they inevitably underdeliver. Again, what we've been promised is absolute evidence and proof of non-human intelligence or alien-made vehicles recovered intact and bodies of non-human intelligences or aliens recovered that the government is in possession of. That's what we were told Grush is going to deliver evidence of. That's what we were told. Talk about a big promise to fulfill. I think if history is any teacher, and sometimes history can be the greatest teacher, we can see thousands of examples of what I'm talking about. Overhype, overpromise, and then inevitably, because you overhyped and overpromised, you will underdeliver. And then comes the big letdown. Are we all in for another big letdown? Let me know what you think in the live chat or in the comments. And I just wanted to mention as well that we will be continuing to cover this situation. I'll take a few comments. Dead Minds Podcast says, we will get the same old nothing burger BS as usual, Steve. SSDD, just 75 years older. Yeah. Foxy's Friends says, we seem to have to deal with a lot of non-human intelligence more often. Stupidity is on the rapid rise for a while now. Yeah. And Tom Foolery says, yep, nothing burger, just with new faces. Yeah, I'm still hopeful that maybe there will be some real evidence, but it doesn't look good so far. As it stands, Lockheed has the right to peaceful enjoyment of its lawful possessions. Yeah. Amy Collins says, with this track record of these being identified, this is going to be a national embarrassment. I believe so. And it's going to be a huge waste of tax. If there's no proof of Grush's claims at all, then Grush and Ross Coulthart and Leslie Kean should have to pay all of the expenses for this hearing. If there is no evidence of Grush's claims that he can provide at these hearings, then Grush and Ross Coulthart and everybody profiting from this story that they've been pushing should have to pay back the taxpayers for every dime spent on investigating his claims, having hearings on his claims. That would prevent further grifters from wasting taxpayer resources, dollars, and whatever. And I keep hearing Ross Coulthart making all these demands. He's an Australian citizen. He's not even an American citizen. Can I demand that the Australian Parliament or whatever they got over there investigate, I don't know, my asshole? Can I say, look, there's non-human intelligences in my asshole, and I have convinced 50 other people that that's true, and I demand that the Australian government spend Australian taxpayer time, resources, and whatever to investigate the non-human intelligence in my butthole? Of course not. So why should an Australian citizen be able to make demands of our government? It's absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. And by the way, the spin doctors are out in full force saying, oh, there was budget cuts at 60 Minutes, and Ross Coulthart leaving 60 Minutes had nothing to do with the completely 100% fake pedo story that he over sensationalized and peddled right before he got let go, contract not renewed, whatever. And by the way, just to be clear, I never said he got fired because of that story, but I don't think it's a coincidence that right after he got caught with the biggest embarrassment to 60 Minutes Australia ever in the form of a completely fake story. By the way, his primary source for that was a mentally ill man who was later arrested for making false claims. I don't think it's a coincidence that his contract didn't get renewed or he got let go of 60 Minutes right after that story. Look at the timeline. But people can think whatever they want. And then there's the fake Jim's balls shaving story. We've been waiting a year for evidence of that. He said there was conclusive proof of alien technology, all confirmed by Michio Kaku. No, there wasn't. There was proof of nothing. They didn't have conclusive proof. They didn't have any proof. And Michio Kaku never confirmed anything. So that's two, if you're keeping track, two 100% completely fake stories that were over-sensationalized, overhyped, over-dramatized, and rammed down the throat of everyone that turned out to be completely fake. And that's who brought us the Grush story. So, again, history is a great teacher. What do I think is going to happen here? Oh, I can't wait to find out. And honestly, I don't care either way it comes out. I win. I always win. But here's why I win. If this Grush story is a complete and total nothing burger, I win. Because I've been talking about the red flags and how Ross Coulthart has been caught selling completely fake stories for the whole month now, right? But I have also spent, some would say, wasted years and years of my life into investigating UFOs and alien visitation on Earth. So if they actually bring evidence of non-human intelligence visiting Earth or non-human intelligence, alien, whatever you want to call it, spacecraft that they've recovered that is the smoking gun proof of aliens visiting Earth or interdimensional beings visiting Earth or whatever, if they do provide that evidence and that proof and that stunning revelation comes, then I will know that I did not waste 20 or more years of my life being completely obsessed with all this stuff and always finding that it's all fake for the most part. So I am very anxious and I'm thankful that all this happened because one of those two things has to happen. Or there is, of course, another possibility, which is we will get no evidence and all the true believers and the UFO profiteering hucksters will spin things, right? And promise, no, the next hearing will have the evidence. The next hearing. It's always kick the can. They never provide the proof. We've been waiting a year for proof of Ross Coulthart's last huge claims. Conclusive proof of alien technology, all confirmed by Michio Kaku. We've waited a year. He's never provided that proof or evidence. Are we going to wait a year until we find out there is no proof or evidence coming of the Dave Grush story? I think that might be the case. And if so, all the people pushing that story should be banished from this thing forever. Everybody should just shut off their ears anytime those people speak again about anything alien or UFO. And I think that should happen in all these cases. Look at this case of this guy tonight and the Stephen Greer goof on third phase of moon hyping of this so-called historic disclosure event. It was so historic that nobody in the major media covered it. It was so historic that nobody cared, except for the people that paid $500 a shot to go and listen to a bunch of stories with no evidence. But hey, at least this time Greer upped his game, and he had a lot of pretty pictures provided by Michael Schratt, who I hope Michael Schratt, come on, Michael Schratt, you can't work for this garbage peddler who keeps on pushing this hopium nonsense and never, Michael Schratt, in 30 years, Stephen Greer hasn't proven anything. You want to work for a guy who hasn't proven anything in 30 years? What's it going to do? Just keep selling stuff for another 30 years and still not provide the evidence? I'm sick of that. And so should everybody should be sick of that. All right. The show is not over. I always have to tell people this. We are a viewer-supported show. And unlike Mr. Shawn Ryan, who can make $30,000 letting people tell you stories with no evidence, we have evidence here, or we try our very best to. And we have broken an incredible amount of stories here and provided this community with information no one else had. We've provided this community with what I think is a public benefit, showing you when people are not being honest, when people are simply profiting from stories that aren't what they appear to be. I think that's a public benefit. I think that has value, and many of you do too. And thank you to all of you kind and generous benefactors who constantly are helping us continue this journey. We're a viewer-supported show, and that means even though we get demonetized for telling the truth, and Shawn Ryan apparently is fully monetized, plus ad reads for letting Stephen Greer lie to you about briefing presidents, everyone since Ronald Reagan, we need support in other areas since we're getting literally, I always use this analogy. Trying to do this is like somebody breaking both your legs and then saying, go run that marathon with 2 broken legs. There are a lot of obstacles to doing this work. There are a lot of impediments, and there are a lot of things in the way, and resources help us get around those things. So we thank each and every one of you kind and generous benefactors. The show is not over. I'm going to take some comments, questions from the live chat. As soon as we return, it's only a couple of minutes. Please bear with me while we remind you that we're a viewer-supported show. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truthseekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and in many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Cambion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat group during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
Well, my friends, time certainly flies while you're having fun, and there's no place I would rather be. I just realized we're already over 3 hours into tonight's broadcast, which was intended to be a 2-hour broadcast, but we know how that goes. It's like once you wind me up, you never know how long it'll go, but we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. But before we do, I just want to mention that somebody from another show that's a fan of another show host that lies to people constantly came and started arguing with me today on Twitter. And I provided them with very short videos that prove that I have receipts for everything that I say about that lying, scamming show host. And they didn't want to watch them. In fact, they told me I refuse to watch that. Nobody's going to tell me what to think. I'm not telling anybody what to think. I'm not telling anybody who to watch. I'm just giving you evidence. But if you come to me and straight tell me that you refuse to even listen to or watch the evidence, then I can't help you. Don't argue with me. And after that person realized that he couldn't win an argument with me when he had no facts in hand and I have all the facts and receipts in hand, they blocked me. So I love it when the trash takes itself out. Good. And I mentioned this before. If my patience is short, by the way, I'm a very accessible person. People can DM me on Twitter. People can PM me on Facebook. People can email me. Our email address is public. It's truthseekershow@gmail.com. And you can also contact me via our website at truthseekershow.com. People have my cell phone number because doxers and people unhappy with me revealing that their UFO celebrity hero is a lying, scamming grifter decided to dox me, threaten me, intimidate me, harass me and my family, and put my cell phone number all over the internet. So, and by the way, thanks to people who got that and, didn't decide to call me, but people call me at random now. It's great. I'm fishing with my child at the local pond near my cabin, and somebody called me. Oh, I got your number when they doxed you. And I mean, that's okay. My point is, I'm a very accessible person. I don't need to be, one other show host told me that I need to stop doing all of those things. Don't be that accessible. Let people ask questions in your live chat and nowhere else. But I don't like to be that way. I guess my point is that I'm a very accessible person. If as long as you engage with me respectfully, I'll answer questions or address concerns or whatever the case, whatever's going on that you want to communicate with me about. But I'm not going to be, one thing I will not allow is somebody to come into one of my feeds and just repeat lies from a scammy show host that is a proven liar. You're not going to come into my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed and just lie. And if you do, I will post a video that says, no, you're lying. And that person, if you're just going to come to me and repeat complete and total lies from a show host that, by the way, we busted as working for the biggest UFO scammers in history, no, we're not going to allow that. I'm not going to tolerate that. If you want to repeat lies, go to the liar and go to his live chat or his feed, right? I mentioned this before. Summer is my busiest time of the year. I have 2 boys, 7 and 11, home with me all day long. And all of my patience is required for that. I don't have patience for stupid people. And I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to say this, but if you're so stupid that you say, I don't want to see the evidence, Stephen, my mind is made up, then don't come at me. Don't come at me, bro. Don't come at me without facts in hand before putting mouth, or in this case, keyboard in gear. Oh, another keyboard warrior is going to tell me how wrong I am about a show host that we busted out the wazoo. How many times do I have to prove that person lied? And that's all I'm saying. He's a proven liar. That works for the biggest UFO scammers in history. If you want to argue with me about that, then go somewhere else. I don't have time for you. My time, my patience, and my energy is better spent on my children and my family right now. If you don't even want to see the evidence that I'm right, then I can't help you. Go somewhere else. All right. And Mr. Ian is mentioning that he has a new show intro being rendered right now. We might use it tomorrow night, Mr. Ian, so please send it to me. If you like Stephen's work, please like, share, and subscribe. Watch another one of his videos even. Everything helps. Yes, our call to action is this. If you like our show and you want to see us succeed, please go to our live section, go to our main YouTube channel, click on the live button or click on the video button and watch one more video. Maybe not tonight, whenever you get a chance, while you're working, while you're commuting, while you're going on a road trip. And also, please check out our audio podcast, which you can get wherever pods are cast. Everywhere it's available. Just search for Truthseekers or Truthseekers Show. Look for me, the strange guy with sunglasses. And that really helps us rise in the search engine when you watch one more video, because somehow that tells YouTube that we make good content, good enough that people come back for more. So they crank up the recommends and we reach a greater audience. And we thank each and every one of you for doing that. Mark Tirana is reminding people, if you like Stephen's work, like, share, and subscribe, and watch another video even. Everything helps. Yes. All right, we'll take some comments and questions. Mr. Ian is sharing a 1-800 number for some unknown reason. I don't know. Amy Collins is saying, I imagine it will be one of those backroom type hearings, not on the floor. No, it's supposed to be public. Troll says, fishing is very good fun. Yeah, and I'm a bad person because I need to get my fishing license, and I forgot. So don't tell anybody, and I won't. But I was, well, actually, at the pond at my cabin, it's a private community, so I don't think I need a license there. I don't know. I think they still expect you to have one, though. Siren 1 is here, and thanks for being a member. Says, you have 1 child, Stephen. Was he? No, I have 2. I have an older son named Zachary, who is nonverbal autistic. Many people have heard me talk about him before. And by the way, Siren 1, thanks for being a member. Much, much appreciated. And my younger son, who's 7 now, is the little cash clown. And we did that because he was very interested in the show, and he wanted to help with the show or be a part of the show in some way. So, you know, I keep saying we're going to, I filmed a bunch more bumpers with him, but I haven't cut them together and used them. Truthseeker 72 is here, and thanks for being a member. Says stupid believers can't handle the truth. Yes, they don't like to be confronted with things like facts and evidence, right? Yeah. Sandra McDonald is here, and thank you for being a member with a very important point that it makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering why the personnel holding them prisoner let them keep watching. Like, wouldn't they make them all lay down facing away? Yeah, or blindfold them so they didn't see the top secret projects going on, right? Just another guy named Harry says 7-Eleven, bra, your chief concern should be making sure you have time to get enough sleep. I'm just saying they'll be off to college soon enough. Well, my younger son is autistic and nonverbal. I don't think college is in his future. I'm sad about that, but that's just the reality of it. He'll probably live with us forever. He's very, I don't want to say handicapped. I don't really like that word. He's very impaired, and he requires a lot of total attention and time. But you're right. My time is better spent taking care of myself and my family than arguing with people. And by the way, let me be clear. This person just wanted to argue with me. They made accusations. They repeated the talking points of a UFO scammer, hoaxer. You know, it is what it is. Tyler is live. Geez, haven't heard him since. Oh, I mean, Tyler from Secure Team is live, right? All right. And we have Bill effing Murray is here. Great user ID. And thank you for being a member. Says, dude, I binge watch your videos while I'm at work overnight. Well, great. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for the watch time. And thank you for helping us. I really, truly appreciate it. And thank you as well for being a member. Thank you very much. And we have Chris Holm, Skinny Chad Zumach with a kind and generous $10. Said, I'd love to talk to you sometime. Your archive has been invaluable to me understanding these characters. I always felt something off, but not known how to put my finger on it. Well, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And just email me or DM me on Twitter or PM me on Facebook. It's Stephen Cambion on Facebook. It's at Stephen Cambion on Twitter. And for those of you, anyone within the sound of my voice, please do follow me on Twitter. It's just at Stephen Cambion on Twitter. That's the best way to keep up with upcoming shows. Just email me or contact me, Chris Holm, and I'd be happy to give you a call sometime and talk to you about whatever you'd like. I try to do that, especially for you members, you know, or anyone, honestly. And also, I just want to make a point in saying, I haven't said this for a while, so somebody reminded me because they sent me a message saying, you know, I lost my job during the pandemic. I'm really broke. I'd love to get your extra content. And someday when I'm in better circumstances, I'll have the money. And I can't wait to do that. And I really like your show or something. You know, they sent me a very nice message and I told them to email me. And if you're in reduced circumstances, I hate putting things behind a paywall, but it's part of this game. If you're in reduced circumstances and you're a fan of the show and you'd like to get the extra goodies, just email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. And I don't need to, you know, people give me the details and I always feel a little weird. Like, you don't need to tell me all these personal things. Just send me an email, truthseekershow@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show and you're in reduced circumstances for whatever reason, I don't need to know the reason. Just write me an email and say, hey, having a tough time, put me on the email list for the extra goodies. And every month when I post the stuff to Patreon or to the members, I send out to a bunch of people on our email list. I send the same stuff. So, you know, and to those people making arguments to me like, well, you're on Patreon. Yeah. I think everybody is on Patreon. You have to be to survive as a show host. But I feel very strongly that people who are fans of the show should not be excluded because of $1. I mean, and our Patreon's $1, but still some people are having, it is tough out there, brother. Can you spare $1? Right? I get that. So if you're having problems or lost your job in reduced circumstances, don't have extra money, I don't need to hear why. It's okay. Just email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. Let me know, hey, having a tough time. Please put me on the, we're going to have to come up with a name for that. Like the friends of the show email, because I don't want to identify like these are the jobless people that need the content for free because they don't got $1. Like, this is awkward to me. I just want to make sure that I express to all of you that everybody is welcome. I don't like putting things behind a paywall, and I've always maintained this offer for anyone. If you're having a tough time, just email me, and I will send you the same benefits that we send everybody else. We'll take some more comments before we bounce on out of here. Yeah. Bob Marley says, no college, but at least they're happy. Yeah, there was a time when I was very, very emotional and upset about all the things that my son would not be able to do. He might not. I really don't think he'll ever get married or live on his own. He's just not capable of many things. He needs an incredible amount of help. He needs a full-time caregiver. And that has been me for 8 years now. But eventually I figured out that as long as he is healthy and happy, then so should I be. And he's happy, especially if there's plenty of snacks. That's his thing. This kid he's 11 now. He is eating like a horse. Maybe I'll be blessed with non-fur babies one day too. Yeah, I have seen your dog there. And I am very, very jealous because I used to have a Malamute Husky growing up. It was my father's favorite dog. This dog lived to be like 18 years old. He was such a big, hairy beast. I loved him with all of my heart. And after my father died, our Malamute Husky got sicker and sicker and sicker. He lived several years after my father died, and he lived with me. But eventually we had to put him down because he was like screaming, and he couldn't walk at times. It was really, a mercy to take him to the vet and have him put to sleep, but I couldn't do it. So my brother had to take him, and I felt terrible. And I miss that dog immensely. I see some of your posts and it reminds me of him. Oh, this is good. Spooky sending me, we'll have to do this on another show, but this is Dave Beatty on Twitter, which Spooky found. 29 Palms Mojave Triangle update, new info. I was able to contact a former combat photographer who is familiar with the night of 4/20/21. For anybody unaware, that was the flares fake UFO that Corbell and George Knapp pushed, that they claimed they investigated for 2 years. So this person says they found a witness, a photographer, who was aware of the events that transpired since he was there filming it. He told me he is well aware of the UFO, and he says it was flares. It was flares. He will answer any questions you may have to dispel the myth. So ask below, and I'll pass them on. He's not on Twitter. So this is a whole thread. We really can't go into the whole thing. We'll try to cover this tomorrow. But it's an interesting thread about the complete and totally fake UFO that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell pushed. Yeah, interesting. Chris Holm is here and says, Truthseekers, I've sent an email. I'll follow up with a DM soon. Love the show. Well, we love having you here, so thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Siren One, thanks for being a member, says there are hundreds, maybe thousands of YouTube channels with UFO and weird things. This is the first one I found that debunks. There's not many of them that bring you the actual truth. Usually the way it goes is people just repeat whatever's on Wikipedia. I call them the Wikipedia script kids. And it burns me up that those guys get 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 100,000 times our views sometimes, because it seems like they do nothing but read off of Wikipedia, whatever, and usually from a very believer base, like this is really true. It's discouraging, but along with the discouragement comes the fact that we're very proud of some things here. Like we have broken many, many stories that nobody else had. I love exclusive stories to Truthseekers, like the story we did last night of David Wilcox Hover Car Company essentially running a Ponzi scheme investment scam. And we predicted that whole thing was a scam more than a year ago. I love those kind of exclusive stories. We do our best to find new information and break it down for you. Yeah. Siren One says, when my babies were little, the father was busy. Yeah, it's a busy time, right? And Thin Lizzy says she's super floofy. Is that a Malamute husky or just a regular husky? I think the Malamutes are like bigger, right? I'm not an expert on dogs. This was a Malamute husky, which is usually the real big one. Yeah. That dog's getting dehydrated pig ears, beef jerky, chicken hearts, and all the treats. Yeah, mine loved those big, and I know you're not supposed to, but we didn't know at the time. My mom used to give them those huge rawhide bones. We find out later that that's not really good for a dog's digestive system or general health because they could splinter and cause problems. But at the time, we didn't know better, and we had milk bones all the time. We used to feed that dog milk bones all the time. My dog is kind of stupid. It's lazy and stupid. It doesn't play. All it does is sit there and look cute. It doesn't do nothing. You can't throw a ball to it. It's this little scrawny dog. It's a Yorkshire, I think. Is that what it's called? I always forget what the hell the dog is. It's a little tiny little teacup dog, which to me, those little. My wife loves little dogs. She had a little Chihuahua before this. Yeah, I'm not a fan of little dogs. I miss having a big dog, but my wife is intent on keeping the little tiny dog thing going with our family. It's easier, little tiny dog. Yeah. Trolley Troll Troll, thanks for being a member. Says, you're a good dad, Stephen. Do not divert from your mission. Well, I'm on multiple missions. I'm on this mission. We've put a lot of time and energy into this. Spooky reminding everybody, smash that like button, friends. And I'm wondering if Spooky has any news for us about a certain project that I'm not allowed to talk about. Spooky's a secret agent, just so everybody knows. And I got strict instructions not to talk about Spooky's secret missions, but it is what it is. Greer is a Rockefeller stooge. I have all the sauce to back that up. He's literally what a reptilian would look like if it was trying to be human. I've heard a lot of people say they think Stephen Greer is an alien, right? Absolutely. I've heard many people say that. Quick side note from just another guy named Harry says, I've been wondering if the ongoing WGA SAG strike is going to result in networks having more documentary shows next season. I miss those America's Haunted Crop Field shows. You know, do you know what I learned today that is crazy to me? Does anybody know Power Rangers? I kind of was a little old. Power Rangers was kind of a thing after me. Hold on one second. I'm trying to see if I can get the name of the character. Oh, I can. All right. So this is what speaking of the SAG strike, this is what I learned today. This person was an actor, and he played Zordon in the Power Rangers television show. And this is how you know that Hollywood is a scam, and that television producers and companies that produce television shows are not fair to the actors and writers who help them make all that money. This person played Zordon in the in the Power Rangers television show, which was hugely successful, made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he got paid $150 total. They brought him in for one day, and he filmed all kinds of dialogue and scenes, and they used and reused his scenes for the entire length of that television show run, and he got paid a grand total of $150. That's criminal to me. That's absolutely criminal to me. They made millions of dollars, and this guy was one of the recurring characters throughout the whole run of the television show, and he only made $150. And by the way, I want to interview this guy and find out the whole story. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy if he really only got paid $150 for the whole. Spooky can't give any update. Yeah. Working away. I don't know what's left to say. I'll say it anyway. Yeah, somebody said they want to see me with a Doberman. I never liked Dobermans, but I did for a time. Amy Collins. I had a Rottweiler for a while, and that was again the Rottweiler was one of my favorite dogs. But I didn't know when I got him. I got him at the pound, and he was already like 8 years old or something, or 6 maybe. Maybe he was 5 or 6 when I got him. And nobody told me that Rottweilers, they only live like 10 or 11 years, you know, they don't really live long. And so I only had a few years with him. His name was Shadow. And I love that dog because he was so incredibly protective of my wife that like I couldn't even touch my wife around him. He would jump between us and growl, you know, and bark. Like he was just the most protective. And when you live in a city with a lot of creepers, and you have to leave your wife or your girlfriend, I think she was my wife by that time, but if you have to leave your woman at home alone, you feel much better when there's a big, scary Rottweiler, super, super protective of her. I never worried after we had him of leaving my wife or, you know, my wife at home, because he would literally tear anybody apart that tried to mess with her. I know it. Because even if we played around or wrestled or something, he would start barking and get all pissed off. You know, he was awesome. Super, super protective. Someday I'd like to have Rottweilers again. That'd be good. Patty M. Wilhelm says, Stephen, it's great that you're with your sons no matter what happens here. Yeah, me and my wife get in arguments because I joke that I'm on house arrest all summer. But, you know, I got to try to do more activities during the day. I feel like I'm stuck here with them all day. And sometimes that gets to be a grind, you know, when they're ripping apart the house and being crazy. I always say taking care of 2 boys all day is like trying to babysit meth heads that are trying to destroy your house. That's basically what it's like. Yeah. And they need constant snacks too, right? Should do a show on the Sound of Freedom, man. I can't watch, but it's amazing why mainstream is trying to stop it. Oh, yeah. I wanted to mention that. Emily Louise was very critical of Shawn Ryan for promoting that, or what. I haven't seen it. I know generally what it's about. I'm not going to comment on it until I have seen it. I will do a review of it because so many of you asked me to. And I don't want to be skewed either way, either being positive or for that film or against it until I've seen it. It's always best to have facts in hand before putting mouth in gear. And not only am I going to see it, but whatever claims are made in that film, I'm going to research thoroughly before I open my mouth about it. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about it. I want to see it just based on the fact that it's a controversial film. I've had an English bulldog since I was 13. Best damn dogs on earth. That's interesting. Siren One says, yeah, rot. That's what I want. Yeah, great dogs. Wow, that sucks. I remember Zordon vaguely. Yeah, he got paid $150, and they used they used and reused his scenes over and over and over again throughout the whole run of the show. Then Lizzie Borden is here and says, my aunt had a husky that would be protective over her when the husband would kiss her. Yeah, my husky and my Rottweiler were both like that. I had a Doberman named Chester, says Amy Collins. He was born on a farm. He was not mean at all. He was kind of silly and had one ear that flopped over because it wasn't cropped right. Well, that's interesting. Piercing the Veil is here with a kind and generous $3.99 super sticker. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. And we thank all of you kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank all of you Patreon supporters, you Twitch subscribers, YouTube channel members, PayPal supporters, everyone that throws a little bit of support our way. We thank all of you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. This one's for all of you, especially you, Piercing the Veil, for your kind and generous $3.99 Canadian.
Praise the gas, praise the gas. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. Praise the gas, praise the gas, praise the gas.
Yes, thank you very much for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate all of you. Thank you all for the support. There's people all over the world that want to see this journey continue. And every time I'm discouraged, I think of that. I really do. Every time I get discouraged. Troy says Sound of Freedom isn't a good movie, but the little details they use are telling, like the term chicken. Yeah, it's really lit up conspiracy land, that movie. And I did see there's a lot of conspiracy theories about like the air conditioner stopped working at the theater, so you can't go see it, or the film stops running in the middle of it, and it'll be an hour before we could get the film working again. There's a lot of weirdness associated with this, and that interests me. So I'm going to check it out, and we're going to investigate those claims as well. Yeah, and I heard this before. Humans Awaken Wolf says Mel Gibson is making a 3-part documentary like The Sound of Freedom, but from a family's point of view, and all the kids missing in Ukraine that they blame the war for. Yeah, that's interesting. Siren's trying to give away some kitties in our live chat. I wish I could have a cat. I haven't had a cat in many years. My son is allergic to cats, so we can't have them anymore. Much more a dog guy, but I did have one cat, a black cat named Jinx with beautiful green eyes that I miss immensely. Yeah, South Park made an episode called Chicken Lover in 1997, 1998. Yeah, interesting. Bob Marley's talking about adrenochrome and biolabs, right? And Amy Collins said he had a big thing for cheese nips, and due to his backwoods nature, we joked that he went Berk. Interesting. Well, yeah, Mr. Ian has 4 cats. They've been trying to cover JPL, Jack Parsons, since he tore a hole in the ether where JPL is located today using Thelma. Pretty crazy story about that character. Yeah, JPL is an interesting story, and so is Jack Parsons. We've never covered Jack Parsons and that whole occult connection and esoteric connection to the Jet Propulsion Lab. We're going to do that sometime. Siren 1 says, I can't figure out why they allowed this movie to be made and none of the actors or anything got whacked. Well, now I really want to see it. I definitely have to see this movie. Well, we want to thank all of you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. All you kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank our chat room moderators. We want to thank Spooky and our announcer, the man with the golden voice, Mr. Ian. And we want to thank all of you for joining us. We had great attendance tonight. I was kind of surprised that nobody cared about David Wilcock's hover car scam. But I'm kind of like disappointed and delighted at the same time. Because in the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, it seems like less and less people care about Corey Goode and David Wilcock. And that means that there is definitely some progress in the world of conspiracy land insofar as people turning off from garbage peddlers. And that I'm happy about. Now, if we could just get everyone to stop paying attention to garbage peddlers like Third Phase of Moon, Stephen Greer, Gufon, and all the bottom feeding people, connected to Stephen Greer, we'll be doing great. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon because now Dr. Stephen Greer has a CIA asset helping him push these false narratives, which I believe are false narratives, disinformation, misinformation, and garbage designed to throw people off the track of the real truth. That's my personal belief and speculation. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is Dr. Stephen Greer just a UFO profiteer out for money or something else? Let me know what you think. So we have done our due diligence, friends. I'm going to be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we may be back to 4 shows a week. I have a couple more shows that I'd really like to fit in this month, this week, including tomorrow night at 9 p.m. I haven't decided if we can fit another one in, but I'm going to try to do that. So that's all I got for you, friends. Thank you all for joining us. And please do tune in tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be back doing this all again, and I hope you'll be here with us doing it too. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.